Chapter 372. When Qinju saw that the lion tribe's main ship was undamaged, he knew that they had lost this battle. Her final decision was to lose the bet. At this moment, Qinju couldn't help but think back. If they had all aimed at the main ship, would they have been able to penetrate it? If the main ship was shot down, it should have dealt a huge blow to the lion tribe's morale. Unfortunately, this was only an if. Qinju could only think about it now. She no longer had the chance to do it again. General, the main ship still has 40% energy left. The other 6 ships have less than 10% energy left. What should we do next? The staff officer looked at Qinju with a slightly sad expression. If they completely gave up on defense and attacked with all their strength, they would be able to deal a certain blow to the lion tribe. However, this way, the 6 ships would definitely be shot down. However, if they gave up on attacking, they would no longer be able to suppress the other party. The situation would become even worse for them. Now, no matter what choice they made, they would definitely suffer great losses and sacrifices. General, let the main ship retreat. Adjutant Yuna looked at Qinju with a complicated expression and said, "Where there is life, there is hope." The current situation could be said to be extremely disadvantageous for the 10th Legion. As the commander of the 10th Legion, Qinju was definitely a core figure. If he left the main battlefield now, it would definitely be a huge blow to the morale. However, in order to preserve the fire of the 10th Legion, nothing could happen to Qinju. Facing the adjutant's persuasion, Qinju was completely unmoved. He was expressionless as he looked at the bone warship and ordered, "Open the barracks and continue to send troops into the main battlefield." In addition to the 7 warships, the 10th Legion's fleet also had 4 carrier airships and 5 barracks airships. Each barracks airship carried 10,000 soldiers. Now, they had sent 30,000 soldiers into the battlefield one after another. At this moment, there were only 20,000 soldiers left. If all of them were sent into the battlefield, it would be fine if they won, but if they lost, the 10th Legion would no longer exist. Qinju's move was to stake everything on a single throw to win this war. At this time, the 10th Legion had no way out. They would either win this war or be completely annihilated. When the last 2 barracks of the 10th Legion began to send troops into the battlefield together, the lion tribe clearly felt a huge pressure. At this moment, Shirgu, who was overseeing the entire situation on the bone warship, was not worried at all. Instead, he laughed. Qinju is already at his wit's end. Now that she's staking it all, she's just an arrow at the end of its flight. Our lion tribe will definitely win this battle. Lionheart smiled in relief. As long as they won this battle and annihilated the Star Dragon Federation's 10th Legion, the pressure the lion tribe faced in the demon court would be greatly alleviated. It was definitely a good thing for them. Qinju sat on a chair and looked at the crystal screen expressionlessly. Looking at the warriors who were fighting bravely on the ground, she couldn't help but sigh softly. "Yuna, get ready. Have the guards follow me and attack." Yuna, who was standing to the side, was shocked when she heard this. "General, it's not the end yet. There's no need to wait until the end. If we attack now, we can still boost our morale and increase our chances of victory. If we attack when we're powerless, it will only make us look more tragic." Qinju took a deep breath and said, "I, Qinju, the Supreme Commander of the 10th Army, will definitely not be the last person to sacrifice in the 10th Army." Hearing this, Yuna was moved and said loudly, "This subordinate is willing to follow General to the death and will fight 100 battles without regrets. Let's go." Just as Qinju stood up and was about to leave the command center, someone suddenly walked in quickly and whispered a few words to Yuna. Yuna, who had received the news, looked at the person in surprise. Then, she turned to look at Qinchuan and said, "General, the scouts have reported that they have captured a person who claims to be Qinchuan. They have verified that it is indeed Qinchuan." Hearing Qinchuan's name, Qinju couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He subconsciously asked, "Qinchuan? Why is he here?" Not waiting for Yuna to answer, Qinju seemed to have thought of something and immediately said to Yuna, "Bring him here." With Qinju's order, the tightly bound Qinchuan was quickly brought to the command center. Looking at Qin Chuan standing in front of him, Qin Zhu frowned and asked, "Why are you here?" Qin Chuan, who was tied up, grinned and said, "Before we chat, why don't you untie me first? It's too dangerous here. I'll send someone to send you out of here." Qin Zhu ordered his men to untie Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice, "This is not a place you should be. Why shouldn't I be here?" Qin Chuan smiled and said indifferently, "Before I came here, I had already helped Commander Fong defeat the Lion Tribe's Heart of Fury and captured nearly 100 captives." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, everyone in the command center was shocked. Originally, they thought that the Heart of Fury was running amok near Eastern Mountain City, but they didn't expect that they had already been defeated and even captured many captives. Looking at Qin Chuan's appearance, it seemed that he had contributed greatly in this battle. The Heart of Fury only has 1,000 people. It can't be compared to the current battlefield. Qin Zhu frowned and said, "I still insist on my attitude and send you away." After saying this, Qin Zhu turned around and walked out of the command center. She wanted to lead the army to attack and boost their morale. Qin Chuan saw Qin Zhu turn around and leave. He chuckled and said, "If I say that I have a way to help you repel the Lion Tribe, would you believe me?" Before Qin Chuan's voice fell, Qin Zhu had already turned around and looked at him with a sharp gaze. He asked very seriously, "Are you sure?" "I've observed from the edge of the battlefield before. Now that the 10th Legion has fallen into a desperate situation, there's no other way. Other than trusting me, do you have any other way?" Qin Chuan looked at Qin Zhu seriously and said, "So you can only trust me." Qin Zhu couldn't help but fall silent when he heard this, because Qin Chuan was right. She no longer had any way to salvage the situation. Now, Qin Chuan's words were equivalent to her last life-saving straw. No matter what, she had to hold on to it tightly. After thinking for a while, Qin Zhu looked up at Qin Chuan and said, "We don't have much time left. If you have any ideas, just say it. I'll get everyone to cooperate with you." When Qin Chuan heard this, he looked at Qin Zhu meaningfully and said, "I need time, at least 20 minutes. Please make sure that the warriors who are fighting outside hold on. As for manpower, I think you alone should be enough." Chapter 373. BZZT, BZZE, BZZT. On the battlefield, a soldier held an A-type laser gun and fired 3 consecutive shots at the lion-faced enemy in front of him. 3 beams of light flashed and hit the enemy's head, penetrating it on the spot. Brain matter mixed with blood flowed out. Just as the soldier was about to look for the next opponent, a sharp bone knife ruthlessly pierced his chest and mercilessly took his life. Such a scene played out continuously on the battlefield. There were people falling every moment, and blood dyed the ground dark red. Everyone seemed to have become tireless war machines. There were only enemies in their eyes, and they kept fighting until they were killed. Only then could they stop. They looked at the dark sky with tired eyes, and then slowly closed their eyes. On the skeletal warship, Lion Bro looked at the battlefield on the ground. He watched as his clansmen fell one after another. He sighed softly and shook his head helplessly. "Our soldiers are all brave. The enemy is also brave. They are all respectable people." Lionheart nodded in agreement. He then looked at the dead clansmen with a regretful gaze and said, "They should have lived a happy and free life. But because of the Lion King's wrong choice, they have to bear a heavy burden that they should not have to bear. I'm really heartbroken." If it were possible, Lionheart really wished that they were in the hunting grounds of the clan. Good men would compete with each other in hunting techniques, and let the sound of laughter replace the roar of gunfire. The Lion King? With Lion Fun's responsibility, is he really qualified to be called the Lion King? In my eyes, he's just an idiot in the realm of the Demon King. Lion Bro sneered, "I really don't know what kind of madness those old fellows in the clan had. They actually supported such an idiot to ascend to the throne." "Supreme Commander, be careful with your words." Lionheart reminded, "Be careful of the ears of the walls. I have already come this far. I have nothing to fear." Lion Bro looked into the distance with deep eyes. "If he wants to kill me because I said a few words of truth, then let him. When I am dead, let him, the high and mighty Lion King, personally lead the army. Lionheart heard this and looked at Lion Bro with a subtle gaze and asked, "Do you still miss the previous king?" "I don't miss it. I miss it very much." Lion Goose slowly turned to look at Lionheart and said, "He is the real king. He has the demeanor of an invincible king. He has the spirit and courage of king." But he disappeared. Ever since he started that war with the Rat Clan, he disappeared. Lionheart sighed and said, "If he still hasn't healed the injury to his foundation, he might be dead by now." "He can't be dead. He must still be alive." Lion Ancient looked at Lionheart seriously and said, "The news of us winning this war will spread throughout the human world. He will definitely hear this news. I will wait for him to come find me. When that time comes, I will assist him to ascend to the throne again." Lionheart looked at Shirgu in shock and asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure." Shirgu was extremely serious. "Only he can lead us to a glorious future. Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure." Qin Chuan looked at Qin Ju with an extremely serious expression and said, "Only in this way will we have a chance of winning. No, this is too risky." Qin Ju shook his head and said, "If you really do this, you might die. According to my plan, we have a chance of winning, and I might not die. If we don't follow my plan, then we will definitely lose. Perhaps I will be chased to death as a deserter. Which one do you want to choose? Even if we don't use your plan, we might not lose. You know that there's no other way to salvage the situation. Why aren't you willing to give it a try?" "Because I don't want you to die." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Qin Ju and said, "Back in the Elf City, you let me make my own choice in the face of Lion Duke's request. Now that I want to make my own choice, you're stopping me. Can you tell me the reason?" Qin Ju opened his mouth, but didn't say anything. "Everyone can be sacrificed. Is it only the Qin family that's special?" Qin Chuan sneered. "If I was just Qin Chuan, a simple Qin Chuan, wouldn't I not even have the qualifications to see you? Not to mention discussing tactics here. I didn't mean that." Qin Ju explained for himself. He wasn't a selfish person. "It's best if you don't mean that. Then do as I say." Qin Chuan didn't give Qin Ju a chance to refute and made the final decision. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated and helpless expression. "Why are you doing this? This won't do you any good. I'm just doing what I have to do. If I can't defeat these demons here, you know better than me what will happen to Eastern Mountain City, don't you?" Qin Chuan smiled and said, "I'm not a great person like you, nor am I a hero. I just want to do what I think is right. That's all." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Qin Ju couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. It was as if she had returned to a few decades ago. That man had said the same thing before. They were just doing what they thought was right. Rumble. The skeletal warships fired their energy cannons again and again, targeting the 7 warships of the 10th Legion. At this time, facing the attacks of the skeletal warships, only the main ship of the 10th Legion had the ability to counterattack. The rest of the warships could only defend. The light blue defensive array glyphs were flickering, as if they could break at any time. Finally, under the powerful attacks of the skeletal warships, the defensive array formation of one of the warships on the left wing finally lost its energy support and completely shattered. The energy cannons fired by the skeletal warships fiercely bombarded the warships, making a rumbling sound. Thick black smoke rose as the warships began to fall to the ground, slanting towards the middle of the Lion Division. Obviously, this warship wanted to cause as much damage as possible to the Lion Division before it was completely destroyed. Seeing this scene, many warriors of the Lion Division on the skeletal warships showed disdainful and mocking smiles on their faces. With the impact of this warship, it couldn't do much to the middle of the Lion Division. To put it bluntly, it was like a stone falling into a lake causing some ripples. In the command center of the main warship, Qin Ju stood in front of the crystal screen, nervously and worriedly looking at the warship that was sinking and falling to the ground. He said softly, "This time it's up to you, Qin Chuan." Chapter 374. On the Bone Flagship. When Lion Goose saw that the 10th Legion's battleship had been shot down, he couldn't help but smile. He said to Lionheart, "This is just the beginning. Next, we will enjoy more fireworks. Compared to Lion Goo's excitement, Lionheart was a little suspicious. Under their attack, the downed battleship was not their main target. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been shot down so easily. Marshal, something seems to be wrong. Lionheart thought for a moment and finally decided to tell Lion Goo about his doubts. There's something wrong with this battleship. Lion Goo frowned slightly and asked, "Are you sure?" "I'm not sure, but I think there's something wrong with it." Lionheart couldn't be sure, but on the battlefield, any small change could cause great changes, so it was better to be cautious. Hearing Lionheart's words, Lion Goo didn't hesitate and immediately ordered, "Have all the battleships change their target and destroy this battleship in the air." No matter what secrets there are on this battleship, as long as it was completely destroyed, all the conspiracies would be exposed. With Lion Goo's order, all the bone battleships turned their spearheads and chose the descending battleship as their target. This change was immediately discovered by Qin Ju, who was in the command center of the main ship. Seeing that the bone battleship had changed its target, Qin Ju's expression changed slightly. He immediately picked up the communicator beside him and said loudly, "Qin Chuan, our plan has been seen through. It doesn't matter. Everything is going according to my plan. Next, please enjoy my performance." As Qin Chuan's voice fell, the slowly descending airship suddenly emitted a buzzing sound. Its engine was fully activated, and from bottom to top, it charged straight at the Lion Tribe's bone fleet. Seeing this scene, the expressions on Lion Goo and Lionheart's faces suddenly became serious. Their guess was right. There was indeed something wrong with this battleship. At this moment, the skeletal warships were already glowing with green light after accumulating power. They were ready to bombard the oncoming warships and destroy them completely. But at this moment, a thunderbolt suddenly fell from the sky and struck the deck of the warships. Rumble. At this moment, the sound of thunder completely covered the sound of artillery fire on the battlefield, attracting everyone's attention. Goo's eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the lightning pillar that was 2 meters in diameter descending from the sky. He cried out involuntarily, "What is that? Why would there be lightning falling from the sky and connecting that battleship to the sky?" Who could tell him what the 10th Corps had done? It wasn't just Lionheart who was shocked. Even the far-sighted and knowledgeable Lionheart was deeply shaken by this scene. He had never seen such a terrifying scene before. Such a violent power of thunder was enough to destroy everything. Before the energy cannons shot out by the skeletal warships could approach the battleships, they were intercepted by the lightning pillars that fell from the sky and swallowed up without a sound, as if they had never been there. This strange scene made everyone's scalp tingle and their bodies tremble uncontrollably. In the command center, Yuna looked at the scene in front of her in shock and muttered, "What did he do?" "I don't know either." Qin Ju took a deep breath and said, "But I know that he will be our hero." On the battleship, Qin Chuan stood in the middle of the deck and looked at the thick lightning pillar in front of him. He couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Although all of this was caused by him, he didn't expect the scene to be so shocking. This is only a level 3 battle formation. If it was a level 4 battle formation, how terrifying would it be? Qin Chuan muttered in a low voice. His eyes shone with unprecedented excitement. This was the power he controlled now. It was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth. Kacha kacha! Just as Qin Chuan's emotions were surging, the battleship let out a sound of being overwhelmed. A huge crack appeared on the deck. "Looks like this is the limit." Qin Chuan glanced at the deck and then looked at the bone fleet not far away. When he saw that the bone fleet was showing signs of retreating, he couldn't help but grin and say, "Are you ready to accept my gift?" Whoosh! Qin Chuan's body suddenly left the deck and flew into the air, landing on the ground. He looked up at the battleship that was flying away and shouted angrily, "All-directional thunder prison, activate!" As Qin Chuan's shout rang out, the sky suddenly became gloomy. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and the battleship fell apart. The violent energy lost its carrier and tangled into a chaotic ball of mixed energy in the air. It suddenly expanded and then exploded. Rumble. Amidst the violent rumbling, the world became the home of thunder. The surging and violent energy swept through everything it touched, and even space trembled. The bone battleship that was unable to get away from the explosion range in time was almost destroyed under the impact of this powerful force. The sound of wailing, angry roars, and all other sounds were swallowed up by this unstoppable force and disappeared completely. On the battlefield, everyone stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. They looked at the explosion that was still spreading with extremely shocked eyes. Their minds were blank. Even a master of the exceptional gold core realm might not be able to produce such a terrifying force. When the explosion that lasted for several seconds finally ended, the scene in the sky reappeared in front of everyone's eyes. What made everyone speechless was that apart from the main ship that was on the verge of collapse, all the other warships of the originally huge fleet of skeletons had disappeared. That terrible explosion almost destroyed the entire bone fleet. On the broken deck, Lion Gu's eyes were about to split open. He stared at the figure in the distance who was quickly falling to the ground and said angrily, "It's him. It's him. I'm going to kill him." "Commander, calm down." The battered Lionheart stopped the enraged Lion Gu. "We have to retreat. Once you're stopped by Qinju, we'll be in danger today." After losing the Bone Fleet, they had lost their chance of winning and could no longer resist the bombardment of the 10th Legion. If they didn't retreat now, they might never be able to leave. Hearing Lionheart's words, Lion Gu roared angrily and spat out a mouthful of blood. "The fleet was destroyed by me. I'm a sinner of the Lion tribe. A sinner." Looking at the sorrowful and angry Lion Gu, Lionheart also felt heartache. Without the fleet, their situation in the Demon Court would become even worse. Chapter 375. Woo woo woo. A low sound of a bugle horn rang out on the battlefield. It was the sound of the Lion tribe's retreat. At the same time, the 10th Legion also retreated. They didn't take advantage of the situation to chase after the retreating Lion tribe. Instead, they gathered all their strength to protect the fleet. As for Qin Chuan, who fell from the sky, Qin Ju rushed over and hugged him when he was still a distance away from the ground. Looking at the pale Qin Chuan, Qin Ju couldn't help but say excitedly, "You succeeded, we won." Qin Chuan grinned and said, "That's right, we won." Qin Ju was so excited that he couldn't control himself. He leaned over and kissed Qin Chuan's cheek, leaving an eye-catching kiss mark on Qin Chuan's cheek. "Hey, even though you're my elder, you can't take advantage of me while I'm powerless to retaliate." Qin Chuan grinned. He was a little embarrassed to be kissed all of a sudden. Qin Ju was stunned for a moment. Then he pursed his lips and said, "I didn't fulfill the responsibility of an elder. Logically speaking, it should be her, the elder, protecting Qin Chuan. But now, it was Qin Chuan who was protecting her, and even more people. She really felt sorry for Qin Chuan, and shouldn't let Qin Chuan bear so much responsibility. This is my own choice." Qin Chuan looked at the retreating Lion tribe in the distance, and said with a smile, "In this battle, your 10th Legion not only blocked the Lion tribe and protected Eastern Mountain City, but also destroyed the Lion tribe's fleet in one fell swoop. Your name will definitely shake the world. This is your credit." Qin Ju shook his head and said, "I can't take your credit. I'm not a soldier." Qin Chuan laughed and said, "Besides, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. My performance in the 6 Great Academies ranking competition was already enough to attract attention. I'm afraid I won't be able to take it if this happens again." Seeing that Qin Ju still wanted to say something, Qin Chuan hurriedly said, "Don't decline unless you don't treat me as one of your own." Qin Chuan indeed didn't have any good impression of the Qin family, but he didn't hate Qin Ju because Ningya had told him a lot of things about Qin Ju. Back then, the reason why Qin Ju had entered the 10th Army was because Qin Yiming had expelled his mother, Qin Qing, from the family. Qin Ju's objection was ineffective, so in a fit of anger, he left the Qin family and joined the army. Although Qin Ju's actions didn't change anything, at least she had expressed her attitude. Just based on this, it was difficult for Qin Chuan to hate her. "All right, I'll take the credit for you this time, but the reward will definitely be yours. Qin Ju said seriously to Qin Chuan. You can tell me whatever you want. I will make a request to the military. That's great. Qin Chuan smiled. I want too many things. I'll give you a list when I'm done resting. Qin Ju nodded. Amidst the cheers of victory, he carried Qin Chuan and headed straight for the main ship that had already landed on the ground. They would temporarily rest here and wait for Eastern Mountain City to transport energy over before returning to Eastern Mountain City to reorganize. Qin Chuan lay on the bed in Qin Ju's bedroom. Looking at the simple decoration style in front of him, he said to Qin Ju, who was sitting at the side, I thought your room would be very iron-blooded, but I didn't expect it to be a refreshing style. I like it simple. I don't like to dress up too much. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan, who was lying on the bed, and asked, How is your body? I'll be fine after resting for a while. Qin Chuan smiled and asked, Don't you have anything else to do? Let the people below do the rest. For me, the most important thing now is to see you get better with my own eyes. Qin Ju looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, Where did you learn the secret skill of fury? When Qin Chuan heard this, he looked at Qin Ju in surprise and asked, How did you know? I've fought with the people of the Lion tribe before. I know the secret skill of fury very well. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and said, And the dragon form you used in the 6th Great Academy's ranking competition is the same as this secret skill of fury. They are both secret skills of the demon race, right? After being exposed by Qin Ju, Qin Chuan couldn't continue to hide it. He could only nod and say to Qin Ju, You're right. These are indeed secret skills of the demon race. You should have guessed that the secret skill of fury was taught to me by the Lion Duke. Hearing Qin Chuan admit it, Qin Ju took a deep breath and asked, So, why did he teach you the secret skill of fury? Qin Ju didn't believe that the Lion Duke would be so kind as to teach Qin Chuan such a powerful secret skill for no reason. There must be some kind of deal. I can't tell you this for now. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said, Everyone has their own secrets, and I am no exception. Qin Ju was silent for a moment, then said to Qin Chuan, Sorry, I shouldn't have asked so much. There's no need to apologize. I know you're just worried that I'll be used by the Lion Duke. Qin Chuan smiled and said, When the time is right, I'll naturally tell you the truth. Then let's talk about today's plan. How did you do it? Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan curiously. Even I would find it difficult to use such terrifying power. If I only relied on the explosion of the battleship's energy, it would definitely not be enough. Under Qin Chuan's arrangement, Qin Ju concentrated the energy of all the spaceships of the 10th Army on that battleship. Even the main ship only left a minimum of 3% of its energy. This way, the energy concentrated on that battleship was as high as 180%. Once it exploded, the power would definitely be extremely terrifying. Fortunately, in the process of luring the enemy, the energy cabin was not hit. Otherwise, Qin Chuan would definitely be buried in the explosion. It was also because of this that Qin Ju had strongly opposed Qin Chuan's plan. With Qin Ju's strength at the perfected gold core stage, he could easily sink a bone battleship, or even two. However, this would take time, and Qin Chuan's attack had almost instantly destroyed an entire fleet of bones. Such power was simply too terrifying. The method I used was nothing special. It was just a talisman array. Qin Chuan smiled and explained to Qin Ju, I used the secret skill of fury to increase my strength. I forcefully inscribed the 3rd level battle formation, Thunder Prison, on the deck of the battleship and used the power of thunder to detonate the energy cabin on the battleship. That's why such an earth-shattering explosion occurred. Hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Qin Ju couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. Thunder Prison? 3rd level battle formation? You're only at the early foundation establishment stage, yet you can already inscribe a 3rd level battle formation. Qin Chuan grinned and said, I was just lucky to succeed. The time and conditions required are too harsh. If I were to do it again, I might not succeed. Chapter 376. Ever since Ningya taught Qin Chuan the inscription method of the all-directional thunder prison, Qin Chuan had tried to inscribe the talisman array many times, but he had never succeeded. As for the reason for his failure, it was very simple. Qin Chuan was not strong enough to support him in inscribing the complete talisman array. And this time, because of the Furious Heart Troop, Qin Chuan was inspired. He thought of using the secret skill of the Furious Heart to increase his strength and then inscribe the talisman array. If this attempt succeeded, it would definitely become another of his killing moves. It was also because of this that Qin Chuan had the confidence to come to the front line and tell Qin Ju that he had a way to defeat the Lion Tribe. Perhaps the power of the all-directional Thunder Prison alone was not enough to defeat the Lion Tribe's Bone Fleet, but if the energy explosion was added, the Bone Fleet would definitely be heavily damaged. This plan had a huge gamble. If it was any other time, Qin Ju would definitely not use such a battle plan because there were too many accidents and too many risks. However, in this situation where there was no way out, she could only choose to believe in Qin Chuan and fight to the death. Fortunately, they succeeded. The battleship successfully approached the Bone Fleet. The power of the all-directional Thunder Prison and the power of the energy explosion were stacked together, unleashing a power greater than 1 + 1 greater than 2. In an instant, the Bone Fleet was destroyed. However, Qin Chuan's dream of using the all-directional Thunder Prison as another killing move of his had failed. This was because with his current strength, if he wanted to inscribe the all-directional Thunder Prison, not only would he need to use the secret skill of the Furious Heart, but he also needed to inscribe it for 18 minutes without any interference. Who would give Qin Chuan so much time and conditions to inscribe the all-directional Thunder Prison during a battle, whether it was the arena or a real battle? The success this time had a lot to do with luck. If it wasn't for the critical moment of life and death, Qin Chuan wouldn't want to take such a risk. You came to Eastern Mountain this time for Wang Bo, right? Qin Ju had investigated Qin Chuan before, so he naturally knew about the relationship between Qin Chuan and Wang Bo. If not for this, she would not have personally honored Wang Bo. Yes, I'm here to look for him. Some time ago, he was watching my competition in Star Dragon City. Later, because of the war, he left early. During this period of time, I kept seeing news about Eastern Mountain. I couldn't contact him, so I was a little worried, so I came to take a look. Qin Chuan smiled and said, I didn't expect you and the 10th Legion to be here. As a mobile force, the 10th Legion will always appear wherever there is a war. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan and explained, originally, there was no need for the 10th Legion to take action in this battle. However, because the 14th Legion station nearby did not make a move, I led the 10th Legion to the front lines. Qin Chuan asked curiously, why hasn't the 14th Division done anything? What are they doing? It's a long story, but I'll take care of this matter. They have to give me a reasonable explanation. Qin Ju pursed his lips and said to Qin Chuan, actually, the military isn't all unyielding men who are willing to shed blood for the Federation. There are also some trash who like to scheme against each other. Qin Chuan understood a little. It seemed like the 14th Division was the trash that Qin Ju was talking about. Right now, the war is over. All right, now that the battle has temporarily ended, I will submit the battle report soon. When the time comes, the military will definitely reward me. Tell me what you want now. Qin Ju said seriously to Qin Chuan. Try your best to make your request boldly. We have won a great victory in this battle, and our achievements will definitely shock the entire Federation. The military will definitely not be stingy in terms of rewards. Qin Chuan grinned and said with a smile, if I want a Thunder Spirit Stone, a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone, can it be done? In daily transactions and cultivation, cultivators used low-grade and middle-grade Spirit Stones the most. High-grade Spirit Stones were relatively rare, and top-grade Spirit Stones were even more difficult to come by. Today, when inscribing the all-directional Thunder Prison, if Qin Chuan could hold a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone, the time needed would be greatly reduced and the power would be stronger. Therefore, in terms of requirements, Qin Chuan really wanted to obtain a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone. At that time, whether it was for cultivation or for inscribing talismans, it would be of great help to him. After hearing Qinchuan's request, Qinju couldn't help but be stunned. She didn't expect Qinchuan to actually want a top-grade Thunder Spirit Stone. No matter what it was, as long as it was related to the word top-grade, it would be an extremely precious existence. Qinju had only used 2 top-grade Spirit Stones since he started cultivating, and they were the ones without attributes. He had never seen top-grade Thunder Spirit Stones before. The military might have them, but they definitely weren't many. Seeing the astonished expression on Qinju's face, Qinchuan smiled and asked, "What? Is this request too much?" "It's not too much. I'm just worried that the military won't be able to meet your request." Qinju thought for a moment and explained to Qinchuan, "Top-grade Spirit Stones are extremely rare. As far as I know, the Spirit Stone mines of our Star Dragon Federation rarely produce top-grade Spirit Stones. Most of the top-grade Spirit Stones were brought out by explorers from the ruins of the universe, and they all have no attributes. Therefore, I can't be sure if the military has any top-grade Thunder Spirit Stones in storage." Hearing Qinju's explanation, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. He didn't expect top-grade Thunder Spirit Stones to be so rare. He had originally thought that he could ask for 2 more, but now it seemed that it would be difficult to even get one. If you don't have top-grade Thunder Spirit Stones, then top-grade Spirit Stones without attributes are also fine. Qinchuan decided to change his request. "If possible, I also want a set of sword techniques." "Sword techniques?" Qinju asked curiously. "You know how to use a sword?" "No, but I'm prepared to learn." Ever since the runic sword had made a move in the 6th grade academy's ranking competition, Qinchuan had been trying to communicate with the runic sword. Although the effect wasn't good, the runic sword would occasionally give some reactions. Qinchuan wanted to learn sword techniques because he wanted to communicate with the runic sword in the future. "Actually, our Qin family sword techniques are very strong." Qinju looked at Qinchuan with a complicated expression and said, "I can teach you." "That's not necessary." Qinchuan shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in the Qin family's things." "All right, I'll make a request of you to the military." Qinju didn't mention the Qin family again. Instead, he instructed Qinchuan, "Rest well here. I'll contact the military and report the results of the battle." Chapter 377. Ever since the day the war broke out in East Mountain, whether it was the military or the commoners, everyone had been paying close attention to the war in East Mountain. It could be said that the war in East Mountain had affected the minds of many people, especially the residents of East Mountain City. They were so worried that they couldn't sleep at night. They were afraid that the soldiers at the front lines wouldn't be able to stop the attack of the demon race, and that East Mountain City would be broken through by the demon race. Their families would be destroyed. As the sky gradually darkened, the residents of East Mountain City, who had been busy the whole day, were eating dinner worriedly, worrying about the future of East Mountain City. All the crystal screens in East Mountain City that were broadcasting programs suddenly inserted a news report. The mayor of East Mountain City appeared in front of everyone and excitedly said to all the viewers who were watching the live broadcast, "Victory at the front lines. The 10th Legion has wiped out the Lion Tribe's Bone Fleet, killed more than 60,000 enemies, and won a complete victory. The demon race has been defeated and East Mountain City is safe." When they heard the news, the residents of East Mountain City were stunned for a moment. However, everyone's faces immediately revealed an extremely pleasantly surprised expression. The battle at the front lines had been won, and East Mountain City was safe. The residents of East Mountain City who were walking on the streets excitedly discussed the news just now. Everyone's faces were filled with joy. "We won. It was the 10th Legion that defeated the demon race. The 10th Legion is invincible. Commander Qinju is invincible. Haha, we won. That's great, that's great. Long live the 10th Legion." At this moment, the residents of East Mountain City were in a state of celebration. They enthusiastically cheered the name of the 10th Legion, cheered the name of Qinju, and thanked the warriors who had risked their lives to protect East Mountain City. While East Mountain City was in a state of celebration, the East Mountain Camp was in a state of solemnity. Everyone's expression was extremely solemn because they were carrying out a soul summoning ceremony. Fang Yong stood under the soul summoning platform and looked at the cultivator who was chanting the soul summoning incantation on the platform. He couldn't help but reveal a sorrowful expression. Although they had won the battle today, they had also paid a painful price. The East Mountain Army had sacrificed more than 14,000 soldiers, and the 10th Legion had sacrificed nearly 30,000 soldiers. This victory had been won with the blood of more than 40,000 soldiers. How could Fang Yong be happy? Return of the heroic souls. Accompanied by a loud cry, a gale suddenly blew through the eastern mountain camp. It was as if someone was crying in the wind, mourning the heavens and earth. Return of the heroic souls. Under the constant calls of the soul summoner, the sound of the wind in the camp gradually became softer. The whimpering sound gradually turned into a blurry singing, as if singing the victory of the war and offering heartfelt blessings to everyone. Heroic souls are immortal. They are only in eternal slumber. The soul summoner sighed and turned to look at Fang Yong, who was standing below the stage. Fang Yong said, "Commander Fang, this war has been going on for too long. Most of the souls of the sacrificed soldiers have already scattered with the wind. I have only managed to summon a little over 1,000 souls." Fang Yong couldn't help but reveal a pained expression when he heard the soul summoner's words. They had sacrificed more than 40,000 soldiers, but only a little more than 1,000 heroic souls have been summoned back. This kind of loss was too heavy. Wang Bo looked at the pained expression on Fang Yong's face and said in a low voice, "Boss, my condolences." Wang Bo could understand Fang Yong's feelings. Every time he treated critically wounded soldiers, they would always say that they weren't afraid of death. This was because even if they died, they could still become heroic souls and continue to fight to protect their country. At that time, he thought it was just a joke. But when it really happened, he realized that not all sacrificed soldiers had the chance to become heroic souls. "Commander Fang, the 10th Legion is back." Hearing this shout, everyone present subconsciously looked up at the sky. The 10th Legion's fleet was slowly flying towards the eastern mountain camp. Seeing the 10th Legion's fleet return, Wang Bo couldn't help but think of Qin Chuan. In order to protect Eastern Mountain City, in order to win this war, he gave his all. "Wang Bo, go see Qin Chuan." Fang Yong looked at Wang Bo with a complicated expression. "Is our hero. Qin Chuan, are you okay?" Wang Bo quickly walked into the bedroom and saw Qin Chuan lying on the bed. He lifted the blanket, and when he saw that Qin Chuan wasn't missing an arm or a leg, he breathed a sigh of relief. "I was prepared to give you a prosthetic limb, but it looks like there's no need for that now." Qin Chuan was a little speechless when he heard this. He said to Wang Bo, "You can't wait for me to die, can you? Prosthetic limb? Why don't you just summon my soul?" When he heard Qin Chuan mention soul summoning, the smile on Wang Bo's face instantly disappeared. He sat by the bed and looked at Qin Chuan with sad eyes. "Brother, we just performed a soul summoning ceremony at the camp. More than 40,000 of our brothers were sacrificed, but in the end, only a little more than 1,000 souls were summoned back." Hearing this, Qin Chuan's expression became a little sad. He didn't expect that after sacrificing so many soldiers, only a little more than 1,000 souls were summoned back. Looking at the sad expression on Wang Bo's face, he sighed and said to Wang Bo, "This is the cruelty and ruthlessness of war. Every victory must be accompanied by sacrifice. We are lucky, they are unlucky. I'm very sad. What should I do?" Wang Bo looked at Qin Chuan with red eyes and said, "If it weren't for you today, we might have to sacrifice even more people." "Don't say that. Every one of us is working hard to win this war. It's our contribution that we can win this war. No one has ever been able to change the entire war situation with their own strength. I'm not a great hero. I'm just an ordinary person who yearns for victory. Why must there be war in this world?" Wang Bo gritted his teeth and held back his tears. "If we humans and demons can live in peace, will there be no more wars? Why can't we live in peace?" Qin Chuan looked at Wang Bo seriously and asked, "Wang Bo, if one day I tell you that I have a way to stop wars and prevent them from happening again. Will you believe me? I will believe you. Wang Bo nodded almost without hesitation. He believed that Qin Chuan had the ability to do so. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said solemnly to Wang Bo, "The current me is not qualified to do such a thing, but in the future, I will definitely be able to do it. This is my promise to you. I will let you see with your own eyes the arrival of peace in this world. Some things had to be done by someone. Since others couldn't do it, then let him do it." Chapter 378. 1,200 kilometers away from Eastern Mountain City, a fleet was slowly advancing towards the city. The Fu flag above the fleet was fluttering in the wind, showing the identity of this fleet. In the command center of the main ship, a tall figure was casually sitting on a soft and comfortable sofa. He held a glass of red wine in his hand and looked at the crystal screen in front of him with a subtle expression. Looking at the news report of the 10th Legion defeating the Lion Tribe, his expression seemed to be somewhat unhappy. "It's just a victory. Is it worth such a big fuss? You're talking as if other than their 10th Legion, the other legions are all trash and don't know how to fight." The one who said this was none other than the 14th Legion's Legion Commander Fu Long. The adjutant standing at the side smiled and said to Fu Long, "You're right, if it wasn't for their 10th Legion coincidentally being in Eastern Mountain City and being lucky enough to meet them, they wouldn't have been able to win this battle." Fu Long glanced at the adjutant standing at the side and asked, "Who do you think is stronger between us and the 10th Legion?" "Naturally, it's our 14th Legion," the adjutant said without hesitation. "Under your leadership, our 14th Legion is invincible." Hearing the adjutant's reply, Fu Long's face slowly revealed a trace of coldness. "Are you treating me like a fool?" Hearing this, the adjutant hurriedly shook his head and said, "This subordinate doesn't dare." "Don't dare? I think you're very brave." Fu Long snorted. "If our 14th Legion is really stronger than the 10th Legion, do you think I'll slowly advance here and give such great credit to that woman, Qin Ju?" In Fu Long's original plan, the 10th Legion should have been defeated after a battle with the Lion Tribe, or even annihilated. The Lion Tribe that annihilated the 10th Legion would have to pay a painful price. When that time came, he would lead the 14th Legion to the battlefield and wipe out the Lion Tribe, saving Eastern Mountain City and avenging the 10th Legion. It could be said that he would gain both fame and fortune. However, who would have thought that things would not develop according to his plan at all, and there would be such a huge change in the situation? This unforeseen event had occurred too suddenly and completely disrupted Fu Long's plan, causing the 14th Legion to fall into an extremely awkward situation. As everyone knew, the 14th Division was the permanent army stationed at the Eastern Mountain front line. When war broke out at the Eastern Mountain front line, the 14th Division should be the first to send reinforcements. However, due to various reasons, he chose to stay put. If it wasn't for the intervention of the 10th Legion, he would have been able to lead the 14th Legion to Dongshan City and defend the city against the Lion Tribe's attack. He would have received the gratitude of the people of Dongshan City, and the military headquarters would have praised him. As long as he could defend Dongshan City, no one would be bothered about the speed of his troops. But now, before his 14th Legion could even reach the battlefield, the war had already ended. Not only would he not gain any benefits, he might even be accused of being a hindrance to the war. Fu Long couldn't help but feel angry when he thought about how he had set up such a meticulous plan and how all the benefits had gone to that woman. Qin Ju, the adjutant, stood at the side and looked at Fu Long's gloomy face with trepidation. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly, afraid that he would provoke Fu Long again. "Pass down the order. Advance at full speed towards Dongshan City," Fu Long said with a cold face. "Send a portion of our troops to the battlefield and help the 10th Legion clean up the battlefield. Remember, our 14th Legion must appear on the battlefield. Do you understand?" "Got it," the adjutant nervously agreed. He had to do this well. Dongshan Camp. Qin Ju stood in front of the window and looked at the busy scene outside. His gaze was complicated. Although they had won this battle, her 10th Legion had been crippled. Out of the 50,000 combat personnel, there were only 20,000 of them who still had combat strength. Right now, there were two choices in front of her. The first was to recruit soldiers. Although recruiting soldiers could fill up the 50,000 combat personnel, it would cause the combat strength of the 10th Legion to decrease severely due to combat experience and other problems. It would take at least 2 to 3 years for them to return to their normal level. This was too long for Qinju. The second choice was to apply to the military headquarters to transform the 10th Legion into a battleship force. Among the 30 legions of the Star Dragon Federation, only the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd legions were battleship forces. Each of these 3 legions had over 100 battleships and were equipped with strategic weapons even more powerful than the Meteor Star Destroyer cannon. Although the 10th Legion was known to be invincible, if they were to fight against the 3 legions, they would be annihilated in less than 3 minutes. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd legions were the most important troops of the military headquarters and were also the strongest troops of the Star Dragon Federation. These 3 troops had always been operating in the border mountain between the Demon World and the Star Dragon Federation, clashing with the direct troops of the Demon Court. An opponent like the Lion Tribe was not worth their time. Now, the 10th Legion had been crippled in order to protect Dongshan City from the Lion Tribe. If Qinju used this merit to request the military headquarters to transform the 10th Legion into a battleship force, the possibility of passing was very high. Once the 10th Legion was transformed into a battleship force, the status of the 10th Legion in the military headquarters would be greatly improved. She would also have a greater say in the military headquarters. Just as Qinju was thinking about how to speak to the military headquarters, the adjutant Yuna suddenly walked over and reported in a low voice, "General, there's news from the front lines. The people of the 14th Legion have arrived. They sent people to the battlefield to fight for the spoils of war in the name of helping us clean up the battlefield." Hearing Yuna's report, Qinju's face instantly darkened. During the battle, there was no sign of the 14th Legion. Now that the battle was over, the 14th Legion had jumped out to fight for the spoils of war. Wasn't that a little too shameless? Call them back, Qinju ordered without hesitation. If the 14th Legion dares to touch the spoils of war, beat them up ruthlessly. If they die, I'll take responsibility. Yes. Yuna accepted the order and left. After Yuna left, Qinju took out his phone, found Fu Long's number in his contact list, and dialed it. The phone rang for a moment before it was picked up. Fu Long's hearty laughter could be heard. "Ha! I haven't had the time to contact General Qin, but General Qin has contacted me first. Congratulations on your victorious return. Mayor Gua and I have set up a celebratory banquet for General Qin in Dongshan City. General Qin, please do us the honor." Qinju laughed coldly when he heard this. "Fu Long, if you don't want to die, you better keep your hands and feet clean." With that, Qinju hung up the phone without waiting for Fu Long's reply. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with a smelly bug like Fu Long. Chapter 379. The news of the 10th Legion defeating the Lion Tribe and annihilating the Lion Tribe's skeleton fleet spread throughout the Star Dragon Federation overnight. Everyone who was paying attention to the battle at the Eastern Mountain couldn't help but applaud the 10th Legion's performance. The significance of this victory to the Star Dragon Federation was unprecedented. Before this, the Star Dragon Federation had never annihilated an entire skeleton fleet. Not to mention, the 10th Legion even managed to capture half of a skeleton main ship. In this battle, the 10th Legion had achieved a monstrous feat. It could be said that they had become a household name of a hero. Even the Qin family was affected by this news. In the study room, Qin Yiming looked at the newspaper on the table. The expression on his face seemed to be smiling, but it also seemed like he was sighing. This sister of mine is really becoming more and more promising. She actually managed to achieve such a feat without anyone noticing. Qin Yiming sighed and said, "It's a pity that I'm her brother. If I didn't watch the news, I wouldn't even know that such a thing had happened." Qin Hu, who was standing behind Qin Yiming, whispered, "Perhaps the general was too busy and didn't have the time to inform you. After all, The 10th Legion suffered heavy losses in this battle with the Lion tribe. The general must have a lot of things to do. That's a pretty good idea. Qin Yiming chuckled and said, but no matter what, Xiao Jue is still a member of our Qin family. Since she was able to achieve such a great feat, our Qin family's face will also shine. It can be said that we have taken advantage of her. We still have to give her our blessings. Give the order. In the name of the Qin family, donate 10 million spiritual value points and 1 billion federal coins to the 10th Legion as compensation for the families of the fallen soldiers. Qin Yiming pondered for a moment and said, do it in a low-key manner. There's no need to deliberately publicize it. Yes, I understand. Qin nodded and asked, should we inform the young master? That trash. Qin Yiming coldly snorted. I originally thought that this blow would make him recognize himself and improve himself. I didn't think that his willpower would be so weak. He actually couldn't recover from this setback. I really want to kill him with a single palm strike. Although Qin Yiming scolded Qin Haoshuan fiercely, his heart still ached for Qin Haoshuan. After all, Qin Haoshuan was his son, his only son. Of course, he hoped that Qin Haoshuan could rise again and reach the peak again. At this time, he could only hope that Qin Haoshuan would be able to find himself again in the carefree secret territory. There's no need to inform Haoshuan about Xiao Jue. Let him calm down and reflect on himself. Black Moon Combat Academy. Ningyu sat lazily on the sofa and calmly looked at the newspaper in her hand. Looking at the media's praises and reports for the 10th Division, the corners of her mouth could not help but curl up slightly. Defeating the Lion tribe with the power of heavenly lightning? Was that brat really that powerful? Could it be that he could already inscribe the 10-directional thunder prison? Qinju is quite lucky to have received the help of that brat at such a critical moment. No, I can't let that guy be too proud. With this thought in mind, Ningyu suddenly reached out and took the crystal bottle on the table. She looked at the wind snow lotus in the crystal bottle and gently smiled. She casually took a few photos and sent them to Qinju. Wind snow lotus, once it blooms, it will never wither. This is a birthday gift from Qin Chuan. I heard that your birthday is coming soon. Did he prepare a gift for you? That bitch. Bang. Fu Long angrily threw the exquisite porcelain cup in his hand to the ground, making crackling sounds. When the soldiers saw Fu Long angry, they did not dare to breathe loudly. This is simply too much. I kindly sent people to help her 10th Division clean up the battlefield, but she actually sent people to beat my people back. What is the meaning of this? Is she trying to throw a tantrum? Fu Long angrily roared. Ever since he became the commander of the 14th Division, this was the first time he had been humiliated like this. Everyone looked at each other, but no one dared to persuade Fu Long to calm down. If they opened their mouths and angered Fu Long, they would not be able to bear the consequences. At this moment, there were also people silently cursing Fu Long. How was that helping? It was clearly dividing the spoils of war. If the 10th Division had not beaten them back, who knows how many good things they would have swallowed into their stomachs. Wong. At this moment, Fu Long's optical computer on the table suddenly vibrated. He picked it up and took a look. His expression changed slightly, and he quickly connected the call. Uncle, it's Fu Long. Fu Long was so angry and manic before, but now he was so cautious and obedient. That's right, obedient. A general who was close to 100 years old and in charge of a division actually had such an obedient side. This was something that was hard to imagine. You still have me in your eyes? Look at what you've done. The East Mountain front line is the area where your 14th Division is stationed. In the end, the Lion Division had to send the 10th Division from afar to resist. When the war broke out, your 14th Division was nowhere to be seen. Now that the war is over and the battlefield is cleaned up, your 14th Division jumped out. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, I do. Hearing this angry roar, Fu Long's face couldn't help but reveal a trace of panic. Uncle, how did this matter spread to the military? Why do you think I'm looking for you? Bastard, do you know what those people in the military are saying about you and your 14th Division? They say you're a scavenger corps, picking up trash that the other divisions don't want. After being scolded like this, Fu Long's face was a little embarrassed. However, he didn't dare to say anything in anger to his uncle, who was in a high position. He could only say in a low voice, "Uncle, I will negotiate with Qin Ju and resolve this matter." That's not the point. The point is that Qin Ju has made great contributions this time and has already applied to the military to transform the 10th Division into a warship unit. Considering the 10th Division's brilliant achievements and the fact that the 10th Division has been crippled and is facing reorganization, the military is very likely to approve Qin Ju's application. The fruit that I've planned for you and your 14th Division for more than 10 years is about to ripen, but it's about to be taken away by Qin Ju. Just because you're an idiot who cowers in the face of great contributions. Do you know how heavy our losses are? Hearing this, Fu Long's face couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear and panic. "Uncle, you promised me that you would give this spot to me." "I did promise you, but the premise was that I didn't ask for any contributions, just no mistakes. But look at your performance. Even if I gave you the spot, would you dare to take it?" "Idiot." Fu Long's face couldn't help but turn ashen when he heard this. If he had known that this war would involve the modification of the warship unit, he would have done it even if he had to fight the 14th Division. But it was too late to say anything now. Chapter 380. In the cultivation room, Qin Chuan sat cross-legged on the ground, quietly circulating the thunder-devouring art. He crazily absorbed the spiritual energy from the 2 mid-grade Thunder Spirit Stones in his hands. In just a moment, the 2 mid-grade Thunder Spirit Stones were sucked into dregs. In just 2 hours, Qin Chuan had consumed as many as 100 mid-grade Thunder Spirit Stones. If it weren't for Qin Ju's limited supply, Qin Chuan wouldn't have been able to afford it with his current wealth. However, although the consumption was a bit large, the harvest was also extremely astonishing. Qin Chuan's cultivation had successfully advanced from the early stage of the Foundation Establishment Realm to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Whoosh! Qin Chuan ended his cultivation and slowly opened his eyes. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. He stood up and stretched his body a little. He smiled and muttered to himself, "I really didn't expect that this matter would be a blessing in disguise. It actually allowed me to smoothly break through to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment Realm." During this period of time, Qin Chuan didn't cultivate particularly hard. Everything was natural. In Qin Chuan's opinion, there were 2 reasons why he was able to smoothly break through to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment Realm. One was naturally because of the overdraft this time. His body was extremely thirsty for power. It longed for the feeling of his entire body being filled with power. When he cultivated, he couldn't help but want to absorb more power. Just like that, he broke through the bottleneck and entered a higher realm. The other reason was because Azure Dragon Songhao had removed the seal in his body, allowing him to cultivate without any hindrance. With the combination of these factors, his realm naturally increased. For Qin Chuan, being able to raise his strength to a higher level before entering the mysterious Carefree Secret Realm was naturally a good thing. This way, he would be more confident in his future trip to the Carefree Secret Realm. Congratulations. Qin Ju slowly walked over and looked at Qin Chuan, who had just broken through. "Your cultivation speed is faster than I thought." It had only been a few months since Qin Chuan had advanced to the Foundation Establishment Realm. To be able to advance to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment Realm so quickly, it could be said that he was a very talented person. "Thank you." Qin Chuan chuckled and said, "After breaking through to the middle stage of Foundation Establishment, I should have some ability to protect myself in the Carefree Secret Realm." Hearing Qin Chuan mention the Carefree Secret Realm, Qin Ju's expression changed slightly. He said, "I know that you promised the Qin clan to represent the Qin clan in entering the Carefree Secret Realm. Actually, this matter is not beneficial to you." "I know it won't benefit me, but I don't have a choice, do I?" Qin Chuan smiled faintly. Between working for the Qin clan and dying, anyone who isn't an idiot knows what to choose. Qin Ju was silent for a moment, then said, "Actually, even if you don't agree, you won't die." Compared to betting on whether Qin Chongxiao will kill me, I prefer to take the initiative. Qin Chongxiao? Is this how you address him? Yes, Qin Chongxiao. It's just a name. It has no other meaning. Qin Ju was a little sad. She knew in her heart that Qin Chuan did not agree with the Qin clan, nor did he treat the people of the Qin clan as his family. However, when she heard Qin Chuan call Qin Chongxiao by his name and not by his grandfather, she couldn't help but feel a little sad. Do you know what the key that the Qin clan wants you to snatch represents? Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression and said, that key is in charge of the opening and closing of the carefree secret realm. Whoever has that key is equivalent to controlling the carefree secret realm. And you should be very clear about the meaning of the carefree secret realm. So that's how it is. Qin Chuan nodded in understanding. Originally, he thought that the key could open a certain treasure, but he didn't expect that it could open the entire carefree secret realm. It had to be said that the Qin clan's appetite was really big. After knowing the importance of the key, Qin Chuan began to think about another problem. Since the Qin clan knew how important the key was, the other clans would definitely know as well. When the time came, in order to fight for the key, there would definitely be some battles. Can you kill people in the carefree secret realm? Hearing Qin Chuan raise this question, Qin Ju couldn't help but look deeply at Qin Chuan and said, of course killing is allowed in the carefree secret realm. However, it's best not to be seen by others. Otherwise, when you come out, some people might not let you off. Qin Chuan nodded and said, I understand. Those who kill will be killed by others. Seeing Qin Chuan's calm appearance, Qin Ju couldn't help but ask, Qin Chuan, have you killed anyone before? No. Qin Chuan shook his head honestly and said, I've killed demons, but I've never killed anyone. Qin Chuan had never killed anyone before, but if he really wanted to kill someone, he wouldn't be merciful. The cultivation world was so cruel. Being soft-hearted to others was being heartless to oneself. Qin Chuan understood this logic. Hearing this, Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a faint gaze and said, I hope that when you return from the carefree secret realm, you will still be the youth I'm familiar with. Qin Chuan grinned and said, don't worry, I will always be Qin Chuan. The military headquarters' actions were faster than Qin Ju had imagined. The rewards she had applied for were quickly approved, and all of them were satisfied. As for the matter of transforming into a battleship force, after some discussion, the military headquarters finally made a decision to temporarily transform the 10th Legion into a half-battleship force. The complete transformation would be completed within the next 3 years. After receiving the military's approval, Qin Ju wasn't surprised. Currently, most of the battleships produced by the military headquarters were supplied to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Legions far away in the World Mountain. In addition to the battleships supplied to the other legions and local troops, it was rather difficult for the military headquarters to take out hundreds of battleships in one go to completely transform the 10th Legion. First, transforming the 10th Legion into a half-battleship force, and then gradually transforming it into a complete battleship force was more reasonable, and Qin Ju could accept it. For Qin Ju, the most difficult thing was to apply for it. As long as he took the most crucial step, the rest would naturally be easier. As for the rewards, the military headquarters did not provide the Qin clan with top-grade Thunder Spirit Stones. Instead, they took out 3 high-grade Thunder Spirit Stones and 1 top-grade Spirit Stone. Qin Ju was not surprised by this and could accept it as well. As for Qin Chuan, he had long been prepared to draw water with a bamboo basket. At this moment, being able to obtain 3 high-grade Thunder Spirit Stones and 1 top-grade Spirit Stone could definitely be said to be a pleasant surprise. In terms of the final sword technique, the military headquarters gave him 3 choices. They were the Army Breaking Sword Technique, Killing Sword Technique, and Absolute Sword. Among these 3 sword techniques, Qin Chuan could only choose one of them. After a simple understanding, Qin Chuan decisively chose the Absolute Sword. Now that he had the sword technique, there was another problem that Qin Chuan needed to solve. He needed a good sword. Chapter 381. June 1st, 6 o'clock in the morning. While the others were still resting and had yet to wake up, Qin Chuan had already set off for the Red Dragon Stadium alone. Although the Red Dragon Stadium had been opened, not many people had entered. There were only about 1,000 people sitting in the auditorium. It was empty and quiet. Qin Chuan walked into the stadium and went to the preparation area. To his surprise, there were other contestants in the preparation area. It was a young man with a straight figure, an ordinary appearance, and a neat buzz cut. Qin Chuan felt strong confidence from him. Just as Qin Chuan was observing the young man also noticed Qin Chuan's existence. He slowly turned around and looked at Qin Chuan. After looking at him up and down, he said, "You must be Qin Chuan." Facing the young man's question, Qin Chuan pursed his lips slightly and said, "I'm Qin Chuan." The young man nodded and said, "I'm Shimin Bei." "I guessed it." Qin Chuan looked at Shimin Bei with deep eyes. "The fluctuation of your aura is not stable. It should be because you have just advanced and haven't stabilized your realm. Since we met, I still want to congratulate you for successfully advancing to the late stage of foundation establishment before the competition. Did it go well?" Facing Qin Chuan's congratulations, Shimin Bei sneered. "Everyone outside thinks that I can advance to the late stage of foundation establishment because I lost to Zhou Lin. You think so too, don't you?" Qin Chuan was stunned and asked subconsciously, "Isn't that the case?" "Of course not. I advanced to the middle stage of foundation establishment less than half a year ago. How could I advance to the late stage of foundation establishment now?" Speaking of this matter, Shimin Bei's expression was full of disdain. "The reason why I advanced to the late stage of foundation establishment was that some people felt that I had disgraced the family, so they forced me to advance to the late stage of foundation establishment. They wanted me to fight my way out of the encirclement in the revival competition and not disgrace the family again." Qin Chuan looked at Shimin Bei with astonishment. He really didn't expect that Shimin Bei advanced to the late stage of foundation establishment because of the family's reputation. Seeing the look of surprise on Qin Chuan's face, Shimin Bei's face revealed a hint of mockery as he said, "This is all thanks to your perfect performance in the newcomer competition. My clan was extremely wary of you, and they were very worried that I would lose to you after losing to Zhou Lin. Therefore, they ignored my opinion and forcefully raised my cultivation level to the late stage of the foundation establishment stage. Those old fogies, for the sake of a little face, they really don't care about anything else." Although Qin Chuan had never experienced such a thing, he was very clear in his heart that forcibly advancing to the next stage without sufficient accumulation and consolidation would definitely cause a great burden on the body and would definitely affect the future cultivation. With the foundation of the Shimin family, they should be able to use some rare treasures to help Shimin Bei make up for the side effects of forcibly advancing to the next stage. However, it would be difficult to make up for the shortcomings in Shimin Bei's state of mind. "Even if I, Shimin Bei, lose, I will do it fair and square." Shimin Bei looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "Therefore, in today's competition, I will not use my full strength. I will compete with you with my previous strength." Qin Chuan was somewhat puzzled. He didn't understand why Shimin Bei would do this. It should be known that if Shimin Bei used his full strength, there was a great chance that he would win. As if he saw Qin Chuan's doubts, Shimin Bei said indifferently, "Those old guys in the family are obsessed with their reputation. They don't care about my future and only know how to protect their interests. Since that's the case, why should I think so much for them?" Shimin Bei slowly walked in front of Qin Chuan, bent down slightly, and whispered in Qin Chuan's ear, "You probably don't know. In the Shimin family, I am just a collateral relative. Although my performance is very outstanding, I am not valued by the family. Do you think that I went to the front line to fight against the demon race at the beginning of my freshman year because I love fighting? Wrong. Those young masters and young mistresses of the direct line of descent in the family embezzled my cultivation resources, and those old fellows didn't care about it all. I had no choice but to join the army and use my military achievements to exchange for cultivation resources. Now, I lost to Zhou Lin. Those young masters and young ladies of the family wantonly ridiculed and insulted me. Those old guys completely ignore my opinion and forcibly use enlightenment to increase my cultivation. They want me to go all out to defend the family's reputation. Hee hee, don't you think it's ridiculous? Hearing the words of Shimin Bey, Qin Chuan was extremely shocked in his heart. He really didn't expect that this kind of thing would happen to Shimin Bey. I am just a collateral relative of an aristocratic family. Compared to a commoner like you, those self-righteous guys hate me more. Shimin Bey smiled disdainfully. In the end, I am just a commoner who lives in the Shimin family with the surname of Shimin. Shimin Bey stretched out his hand and patted Qin Chuan's shoulder lightly. He said, "That day, I saw you refuse Qin Haoshuan's invitation in the arena. After that, you wanted to sign a life and death agreement with Qin Haoshuan. I really enjoyed watching that. You did something that I didn't dare to do. Really, I admire you very much. So, have you ever considered what the consequences would be if you lost?" Qin Chuan looked at Shimin Bey with a subtle expression. If Shimin Bey didn't go all out, then it was very likely that he would lose. Moreover, the Shimin family would definitely be furious because of this, and Shimin Bey might be severely punished. Previously, Qin Chuan thought that the Shimin family would take out some rare treasures to compensate for the consequences of Shimin Bey forcibly increasing his cultivation. But after hearing the words of Shimin Bey, Qin Chuan felt that the Shimin family might not be willing to spend time and energy on Shimin Bey. As for whether Shimin Bey was lying to him or not, Qin Chuan didn't think about it, because fabricating such a lie wouldn't benefit Shimin Bey at all. Consequences? They have already done such a shameless thing to me. Do you think I will care about the consequences? Shimin Bey sneered and said, "After today's competition, if I win, then I will continue to fight. But if I lose, I will go to the front line of the East Mountain and never return to that disgusting family." The front line of the East Mountain? Qin Chuan raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "I have a brother who is also in the front line of the East Mountain. He is a medic. Maybe I can introduce him to you." Shimin Bey laughed and said, "A medic? That's great. As a warrior in the front line, there is nothing happier than having a medic as a friend. But why are you so sure that I will lose to you?" "Because I have this confidence." Qin Chuan smiled slightly. He realized that not all the people in the aristocratic families were bad people. Chapter 382. 2 days passed in a hurry. On the first day of July, the Guang and auction house of Eastcom Prefecture finally opened its doors to the public. The auction would be held at 2 in the afternoon. Before that, one could freely choose the time to enter. If one entered in the morning, the auction house would also provide a sumptuous lunch, snacks, and tea for customers. It could be said that the service was quite considerate. In room 14, Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan, who was drooling at the table full of delicacies, and asked, "You came so early just to eat?" "That's right," Qin Chuan grinned and said, "It's a free lunch, and it's so sumptuous. Why wouldn't I eat it?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Qin Ju didn't know how to respond. Ever since he was young, he had never eaten such a free lunch. Seeing that Qin Chuan had already started to eat, Qin Ju also tried to take a bite. The taste was indeed not bad, and it was not much worse than the cooking of the hotel chefs outside. You've lived in a good environment since you were young and don't understand the suffering of the world. You don't have any concept of free lunch. I'm different. Since I was young, as long as I can eat in a free place, I've basically eaten it. Qin Chuan chuckled and said, "Today is the best I've ever eaten." Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a pained expression and said, "You must have suffered a lot all these years. Only by enduring hardships can one rise above others." Qin Chuan smiled and said, "I don't think my past life was that embarrassing. Instead, I feel that it will be a treasure in my life because I've learned too much from it." Seeing Qin Chuan's calm expression, Qin Ju couldn't help but feel a little sad. Qin Chuan really didn't have it easy. The two of them didn't talk about this topic anymore. Instead, they lowered their heads and ate. After eating and drinking his fill, Qin Chuan lay down on the automatic massage chair at the side and prepared to take a comfortable afternoon nap. Qin Ju, on the other hand, closed his eyes and quietly waited for the auction to begin. Dong! The melodious sound of a bell rang out, as if it was the purest sound in the world, washing away all the dust and impurities, causing people's hearts to calm down at this moment. The incessant sound of the bell reverberated throughout the auction hall. After a full 5 minutes, a gentle voice rang out in the hall. "Dear guests, the auction is about to begin. Please get ready." Hearing the voice's reminder, many people came back to their senses. The drowsiness on their faces disappeared, and everyone became full of energy and vigor. This guang and bell is really good stuff. Qin Xuan, who had just woken up, looked at the crystal screen in front of him. Looking at the guang and bell on the auction platform, he sighed and said, "It's simply a divine tool to refresh the mind." Hearing this, Qin Zhu said indifferently, "The guang and bell is the foundation of the guang and association. No matter who comes forward, they will not be able to take away a single guang and bell, even if it's a replica. The guang and association is quite principled." Qin Xuan smiled and said, "Originally, I wanted to use your 10th Army's banner to buy one from the guang and association. Now, it seems that there's no need." Just as Qin Xuan and Qin Zhu were chatting casually, a beautiful figure in a black dress slowly walked up to the auction stage in the center and said to the tens of thousands of customers, "Everyone, I am He Ling, the auctioneer of this auction. I will introduce the next 163 items to everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to ask." Now, let's bring up the first item. The auction of the guang and association had always been straightforward and never spoke much nonsense. He Ling had only said a few words when the auction officially began. This first item comes from the ruins of the universe. It's a fragment of a top-grade magic treasure. He Ling lifted the red silk that covered the ranking and presented a simple and old jade pendant on the plate in front of everyone. She looked at the jade pendant and introduced it to everyone. After being appraised by the masters of our guang and association, this jade pendant has the effect of concentrating the mind and calming the heart. If you wear it, it will be of great help when breaking through the realm. It can reduce the probability of inner demons appearing. However, because it's a defective product, the effect of this jade pendant is gradually fading. In another 3 years, it will completely lose its effect. Friends who are interested in this jade pendant can now bid. The starting price is 1,000 spiritual value points. Each bid must be at least 100 spiritual value points. As He Ling's voice fell, someone immediately bid 1,000 spiritual value points. However, soon another person bid. In the blink of an eye, the price of this jade pendant had exceeded 10,000 spiritual value points and reached 12,000 spiritual value points. Seeing this scene, Qin Xuan was not surprised. Although this jade pendant would lose its effect in another 3 years, it was an extremely rare treasure for those cultivators who had been stuck at the bottleneck for a long time. It could be said that they were determined to get it. Compared to breaking through the realm, tens of thousands of spiritual value points were nothing. Soon, this jade pendant was bought by a customer at the price of 26,000 spiritual value points. Congratulations to this friend for obtaining the tranquil jade pendant. Next, let us begin the auction of the second item. As she spoke, He Ling had already lifted the red silk on the second item, revealing the item on the plate. It was a bottle of water. "This is our second item, heavenly pure water." As He Ling's voice fell, the entire place was filled with exclamations. Who would have thought that such a rare treasure like heavenly pure water would appear in the auction? When cultivators cultivated, it was inevitable that there would be impurities accumulated in their bodies. Only when they broke through the realm could they expel a portion of the impurities from their bodies. However, even so, there would still be a portion of the impurities that could not be expelled. The longer these impurities settled in the body, the greater the impact it would have on the cultivator. Some cultivators cultivated day and night, but their progress was extremely small because there were too many impurities in their bodies. The effect of heavenly pure water was to cleanse the body of impurities. From this, it could be seen how important heavenly pure water was. Qin Xuan looked at the heavenly pure water placed on the plate and sighed, Such a rare treasure like heavenly pure water is actually placed as the second item in the auction. I really don't know what kind of rare treasure will appear in the future. While preventing Qin Chuan from sighing, He Ling smiled as she looked at the people who were breathing rapidly. She calmly said, I don't think I need to introduce heavenly pure water. The starting price is 100,000 spiritual value points. Each bid must not be lower than 10,000 spiritual value points. As He Ling's voice fell, the price of heavenly pure water immediately rose to the sky. In just a few seconds, it had already risen to an astonishing price of 800,000 spiritual value points. Chapter 383. 1 million. From the start of the auction until now, it had only been 10 breaths of time, but the price of heavenly pure water had already risen to an astonishing 1 million. And this was only the beginning. From this, it could be seen how astonishing the value of heavenly pure water was and how many people were yearning for it. Heavenly pure water, customer number 265, has already bid 1 million. Are there any higher bids? He Ling looked around and said loudly, Heavenly pure water can only be found by chance. If you miss this opportunity, who knows when you'll be able to see it again? Before He Ling could finish her sentence, the price of heavenly pure water soared once again, reaching 1.5 million. Actually, even without He Ling's reminder, everyone knew that heavenly pure water might only be seen once in a lifetime. If they missed it, they might regret it for the rest of their lives. If not for their limited ability, no one would give up so easily. However, after the price of heavenly pure water reached 1.8 million, the increase became much smaller, and the number of people who bid also decreased. 2 million. At this moment, someone suddenly bid 2 million, raising the price of heavenly pure water to a new height. In the private room, Qin Chuan looked at Qin Zhu, who was sitting at the side, in surprise. He did not expect Qin Zhu to suddenly bid for heavenly pure water. Well, there's no need for that. Qin Chuan looked at Qin Zhu with a complicated expression and said, Although I'm interested in heavenly pure water, I don't need it. Qin Chuan indeed did not need heavenly pure water because there were almost no impurities in his body. He did not need heavenly pure water at all. It would not be too late to find it when he needed it in the future. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Qin Zhu glanced at Qin Chuan and said, I think you've misunderstood. I'm not doing this for you, but for myself. I've been stuck at the perfected gold core stage for many years and need the help of heavenly pure water. Hearing Qin Zhu's explanation, Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal an awkward expression. He laughed, scratched his head, and said, Haha, I was just joking to liven up the atmosphere. Heavenly pure water. The guest in room 14 has bid 2 million. Are there any higher bids? He Ling tried her best to introduce the various benefits of heavenly pure water to everyone, hoping that someone could raise the price even higher. When someone tried to bid 1 million, Qin Zhu did not hesitate to raise the price of heavenly pure water to 3 million, intimidating everyone, seeing that no one else. He Ling, heavenly pure water. Hey, room 14, heavenly pure water. Heavenly pure. You. Heave. Heavens. It. Qin Chuan nodded in agreement and said, You're right. For the chance to advance to the nascent soul stage, money is nothing. If this bottle of heavenly pure water could really allow Qin Zhu to successfully advance to the nascent soul stage, let alone 3 million. Even if it was 23 million, Qin Zhu would definitely not frown. The auction continued. One after another, items were brought up to the auction stage. At the same time, the heavenly pure water was also sent to room 14 by the staff and placed in front of Qin Zhu. Looking at the pure and flawless heavenly pure water in front of him, even Qin Zhu, who had experienced great storms, could not help but feel excited. With this heavenly pure water, he was one step closer to advancing to the nascent soul stage. Seeing how excited Qinju was, Qin Chuan chuckled and said sincerely, "Congratulations." "Thank you." Qinju looked at Qin Chuan gratefully and said, "I should be the one thanking you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have come to participate in this auction. Perhaps I would have missed out on this rare, heavenly pure water. Let's treat it as a mutual benefit." Qin Chuan smiled and looked at the auction stage, patiently waiting for the item he liked to appear. Now, let's proceed to the 45th auction item. This time, the auction item is still a magic treasure. However, it's a rather strange magic treasure from the ruins of the universe. Arguang, an association, calls it an ancient magic treasure. Hei Ling smiled as she introduced the special features of the 45th item. This is a sword. Hearing Hei Ling's introduction, everyone's curiosity was piqued. When Hei Ling lifted the red silk, everyone could see a bronze sword lying quietly on the tray. It looked rusty, and there was nothing special about it. From the looks of it, this bronze sword does not have any special characteristics. However, everyone, please take a look. Hei Ling reached out and picked up the bronze sword. Then, she aimed it at a piece of Type 7 alloy on the auction stage. With a light slash, the Type 7 alloy was cut into two as easily as cutting tofu. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but cry out in surprise. One had to know that Type 7 alloy was one of the hardest alloys and was usually used to make magic treasures. This bronze sword could cut this Type 7 alloy into two with a light slash. Didn't that mean that it could easily cut the opponent's magic treasure into two during battle? I believe everyone has already seen how overbearing this bronze sword is. There's no need for me to introduce it further. The starting price of this bronze sword is 100,000 spiritual value points. Each bid must not be less than 10,000 spiritual value points. As Hei Ling's voice was recorded, someone bid for the bronze sword. However, there were very few people who responded. After a while, the price of the bronze sword was raised to 240,000. Qin Ju could tell that Qin Chuan was very interested in the bronze sword, so he said to Qin Chuan, "Type 7 alloy is mostly used to forge low-grade magic treasures. Generally, middle-grade and high-grade magic treasures will use Type 8 alloy or even Type 9 alloy. Since the Guang, an association, used Type 7 alloy as an experiment, it means that the sharpness of this bronze sword is not enough to cut through Type 8 alloy. Therefore, although this bronze sword looks sharp, it is actually just that." Hearing Qin Ju's analysis, Qin Chuan couldn't help but nod his head in agreement. Thinking about it this way, this bronze sword was indeed not worth getting. However, this bronze sword was already the best sword in this auction. If he didn't get it, it would be equivalent to a wasted trip. Just as Qin Chuan was feeling conflicted, the price of the bronze sword had already soared to 300,000. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan could only helplessly give up. There was nothing he could do. He only had a little over 300,000 spiritual value points on him. It could be said that it was all he had now. If he wanted to use all of his wealth to get this bronze sword, it was really not worth it. Chapter 384. In the end, the bronze sword was bought by someone for a price of 320,000. It wasn't too high and was in line with the rules. Seeing one top-grade item after another being placed on the auction stage, Qin Chuan was extremely envious, but there was nothing he could do. The 300,000 spiritual value points on him were simply not enough. "If there's anything you want, just tell me. I can lend you money." Qin Ju glanced at Qin Chuan. "You don't have to be polite with me." Qin Chuan grinned and said, "I thought you would buy it for me. I didn't expect you to lend it to me. I thought that with your self-esteem, you wouldn't want what I gave you." Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan indifferently and said, "Do you want me to give it to you? Since you've already said so, if I were to ask you for it, wouldn't I have no self-esteem?" Qin Chuan spread out his hands and said, "It said that there are a lot of good things in the carefree secret realm. I plan to go there and find some good things." Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and asked, "How much do you know about the carefree secret realm?" "Not much." Qin Chuan said honestly, "My understanding of the carefree secret realm is limited to its name." Ju stared at Chuan for a long time before saying, "You don't know much about the carefree secret realm. How can you be confident that you can find something good inside?" I remember someone telling me that only those below the Aura's core stage are allowed to enter the carefree secret realm. Since the strongest competitor is only at the foundation establishment stage, what do I have to be afraid of? Chuan grinned and said proudly, "In the foundation establishment stage, I've never been afraid of anyone. You have to know that in the carefree secret area this time, the opponents you have to face are not only the young talents of the human clan, but also the young talents of the demon clan. The competition is far more intense than the ranking competition of the 6 great academies. Moreover, it is a matter of opportunity. This is a battle of life and death." Ju understood Chuan's strength and had enough confidence in Chuan. However, there was nothing wrong with being careful. In a place like the carefree secret realm, where opportunities were everywhere and dangers were everywhere, it was better to be careful. This way, the chances of survival would be higher. I'm more curious. Every time the unfettered secret realm opens, how many geniuses of our human clan can return? Chuan was rather curious about this matter and wanted to hear what Ju had to say. Ju was silent for a moment before saying 30%. Chuan was stunned when he heard this. He said in disbelief, "Only 30%? Ju nodded and said, "Although I really don't want to admit it, I have to tell you that the survival rate of the Demon Clan in the carefree secret realm far surpasses ours, because they are more united than us." Chuan understood. Other than competing with the Demon Clan, the Human Clan also had to compete internally. Under the external troubles and internal strife, it was already extremely difficult for 30% of them to survive. Regarding this situation, the various forces had also thought of coordinating it. However, in the end, it was always left unsettled because no one was willing to submit to anyone. After that, every time the carefree secret realm opened, the Human Clan would be like a plate of loose sand. They would fight for themselves and be defeated by the Demon Clan one by one. Most of the opportunities would be taken away by the Demon Clan, and the Human Clan would only be able to obtain less than 30% of the opportunities. After hearing Ju's explanation, Chuan sighed and said, "Human nature is the most greedy. That's why I have to remind you that you have to be careful in the carefree secret realm. Perhaps the Demon Clan won't be able to kill you, but the Human Clan might not." Ju looked deeply at Chuan and said, "Therefore, after entering the carefree secret realm, other than the people closest to you, I hope you won't trust anyone. Remember, in the carefree secret realm, don't be compassionate, no matter who it is." Chuan nodded with a serious expression and said, "I understand." The next item to be auctioned is the 120th item. This time, the item is rather special. It's a slot. Ling smiled as she removed the red silk and presented a square jade token in front of everyone. She said in a clear voice, "This item is the proof to enter the carefree secret realm." Wah! As soon as Ling finished speaking, a burst of exclamations sounded from the crowd. No one had expected that the proof to enter the carefree secret realm would appear at this auction. The carefree secret realm was the most vast and most fortuitous place in the universe. It was not a secret to cultivators. Many cultivators who had yet to advance to the gold core stage wanted to enter it to explore and find their own fortuitous encounters. However, they had no way to enter the carefree secret realm. Now that the proof to enter the carefree secret realm was right in front of them, how could they not be excited? Chuan was also shocked. He looked at the jade token and asked Ju, "Do I also need that thing to enter the carefree secret realm?" Ju nodded and said, "Don't worry, the Qin clan will naturally prepare the jade token for you." Chuan looked at the jade token curiously and asked, "How much can this thing be sold for?" Ju replied indifferently, "The quota to enter the carefree secret realm is priceless. Everyone, the carefree secret realm only allows cultivators below the gold core stage to enter. If the gold core stage cultivators aren't here to buy it for their juniors, there's no need to compete. The auction begins now." The starting price is 500,000 spiritual value points. Each bid must not be less than 50,000 spiritual value points. As soon as He Ling finished speaking, the price of a jade token immediately soared to the sky. In just a short moment, it had already soared to an astonishing 2 million. And this was only the beginning. Qin Chuan stared at the people who were crazily bidding with his mouth agape. He asked Qin Zhu, why are they risking their lives to enter a place where the survival rate is less than 30%? Why are they so confident that they can survive? Qin Zhu sneered when he heard this and said, do you think that everyone knows the inside story of the Carefree Secret Realm? In our eyes, the Carefree Secret Realm is more dangerous than the opportunities. However, in the eyes of these people, they only see the various benefits of the Carefree Secret Realm. They don't see any danger at all. Qin Chuan was somewhat surprised. Didn't you guys announce the data? Qin Zhu glanced at the jade token and said, the Carefree Secret Realm has always been controlled by the aristocratic families and sections. It's basically impossible for others to enter. Do you think there's a need to announce it? Without waiting for Qin Chuan to continue asking, Qin Zhu continued. Furthermore, the aristocratic families and sects also need more people to enter the Carefree Secret Realm. After all, the Demon Clan is a huge threat. If there are enough people entering the Carefree Secret Realm, they can also distract the Demon Clan. To put it bluntly, those geniuses selected from outside the aristocratic families and sects are just cannon fodder. Cannon fodder. Qin Chuan stared blankly at Qin Zhu. He never would have thought that in the eyes of the aristocratic families and sects, they were just cannon fodder to attract the firepower of the Demon Clan. Chapter 385. Seeing the shocked expression on Qin Chuan's face, Qin Zhu chuckled and asked, why? You seem to be very surprised. I thought I had already seen through the nature of those aristocratic families and sections. Qin Chuan was stunned for a while before he came back to his senses. He said to Qin Zhu, to be honest, I've already imagined the aristocratic families and sects to be bad enough. However, your words still shock me. Do these people really have no bottom line? In the face of benefits, what is the bottom line? Qin Zhu sneered. The information about the Carefree Secret Realm is basically in the hands of the aristocratic families and sections. The geniuses outside know nothing about the Carefree Secret Realm. In their eyes, the big pie that the aristocratic families and sects have drawn in front of them is the Carefree Secret Realm. After entering the Carefree Secret Realm, these ignorant people will most likely die inside. Even those who are lucky enough to obtain a fortuitous encounter and come out alive will be recruited by the aristocratic families and sections. It's not just that. Qin Chuan took a deep breath and said with a solemn expression, the more geniuses outside die, the more control the aristocratic families and sects have over this world. The commoners will never have a day where they can rise up. Without outstanding geniuses growing up, what can the commoners use to resist the aristocratic families and sects? Qin Zhu sighed and said, what you said is right. However, in the face of the temptation of the Carefree Secret Realm, how many people do you think can control their hearts and remain unmoved? Qin Chuan fell silent when he heard this. He didn't know about others, but he knew himself very well. He couldn't refuse the temptation of the Carefree Secret Realm. Seeing Qin Chuan's silence, Qin Zhu already knew Qin Chuan's answer. She sighed again and said, most of the geniuses are proud and feel that they are different from the rest. Facing the temptation of the Carefree Secret Realm, no one would feel that they might die inside. The aristocratic families and sects have used this point to attract a large number of young geniuses to enter every time the Carefree Secret Realm opens. Those pitiful people really thought that they were invited because they performed well enough, but they didn't know that they were just cannon fodder. Qin Chuan raised his eyes and looked at Qin Zhu with a complicated expression. You are also a member of an aristocratic family. Qin Zhu nodded and said, I am indeed a member of an aristocratic family, but I have never felt that I am different from others. Qin Chuan let out a long breath and said, I suddenly feel that I am still too young. Qin Zhu turned his head to look at the auction stage. At this time, the price of a jade token had already been raised to an astonishing 3.8 million, but there were still people raising the price. Everyone seemed to have gone crazy. They were willing to give everything they had to obtain this jade token. Do you think they would believe you if you tell them to believe them? Of them. I can confidently tell you that they won't listen to you. At this moment, they're already dreaming of obtaining a great opportunity from the carefree secret realm, cultivating all the way to the nascent soul stage, and carving their names on the Star Dragon Monument. Qin Ju's words sounded very unpleasant and full of ridicule. However, this was the absolute truth. Qin Chuan felt that if he were one of the people present, he would also feel that he was the most special one. Others would die, but he would definitely not die. Not only would he not die, he would also obtain a great opportunity. This was human nature. This was reality. 5 million. Is there any other customer who wants to raise the price? The opportunity to enter the carefree secret realm is truly rare. If you miss this opportunity, you might never have another chance. Under He Ling's enthusiastic promotion, the price of the jade tablet rose again. Finally, it stopped at 5 million, and was bought by the customer in room 106. Seeing that the auction for the jade tablet had come to an end, many customers sitting in the ordinary seats revealed a look of disappointment. Obviously, they didn't dare to believe that they would miss the opportunity to enter the carefree secret realm. However, their financial resources were limited. They could only watch as this opportunity to reach the pinnacle of their lives was taken by someone else. Congratulations to the guest in room 106 for obtaining the entry ticket to the carefree secret realm with a high price of 5 million. Ladies and gentlemen, the next item is also of extraordinary significance. He Ling held a tray in her hand and lifted the red silk on it, revealing 3 test tubes. These 3 test tubes were filled with some pale white liquid that looked very tasty. I believe everyone has already recognized these 3 items. That's right, they're foundation establishment liquid, and it's a higher quality foundation establishment fluid. Whoosh! Everyone who was still in melancholy just now saw the appearance of the foundation establishment liquid and cheered once again, especially those who were sitting in the ordinary seats. Most of them were Qi refining stage cultivators. Among them, most of them were Qi refining stage cultivators. Most of them were at the 13th level of Qi refining stage. The only thing they lacked to reach the foundation establishment stage was this foundation establishment liquid. Not only these Qi refining stage cultivators, some foundation establishment stage and golden core stage cultivators also wanted to buy a bottle of foundation establishment liquid for their juniors. At this moment, they were already rubbing their hands and preparing to bid. The starting price of the foundation establishment liquid is 100,000 spiritual value points. Each bid must not be lower than 10,000 spiritual value points. The 3 bottles will be divided. The 3 highest bidders will obtain it. Before He Ling's voice fell, the fierce competition had already begun. In just a short while, the price of a bottle of foundation establishment liquid had already been raised to an astonishing 200,000 spiritual value points. Even so, there were still many people whose faces were flushed red as they competed to increase the price. The hope of advancing to the foundation establishment stage was right in front of them. No matter what, they could not miss it. Qin Ju looked at the lively scene and said to Qin Chuan, compared to other things, the foundation establishment liquid is lower in the family. However, it is more sought after by everyone. This is because the aristocratic families and sects have almost monopolized the production of the foundation establishment liquid. They control the lifeline of the commoners who want to advance. If these people here can't buy a bottle of foundation establishment liquid at this moment, they might only be able to spend the rest of their lives in the Qi refining stage. Why are you telling me this? Qin Chuan looked at Qin Ju with a puzzled expression. He felt that Qin Ju seemed to have something to say to him today. If it wasn't because I was fed up with the rules and regulations of the aristocratic families, I wouldn't have joined the army. However, when I reached a higher level in the army, I discovered that class is everywhere. There is no place in this world that is pure land. When I see you, I think of your father. He was a very witty, humorous, and very capable person. If it wasn't for the Qin family, perhaps he wouldn't have died so early. The achievements he could have achieved would definitely be very astonishing. Qin Ju looked at Qin Xuan meaningfully and said, I believe that as his son, you have the ability to change this world. Chapter 386. Qin Xuan didn't have any memories of his father. He didn't know what his father looked like, whether he was strong or not, whether his voice was thick or clear, or whether he was tall or short. His understanding of his father came entirely from Qin Ju and Ning Ye's description. He was a humorous, capable, and responsible person. To Qin Ju and Ning Ye, who had seen the true body and understood it very well, this description was vivid and had a specific meaning. However, to Qin Xuan, it was empty. The auction continued, but Qin Xuan's mind was no longer on the auction. Even if a half-step Dao artifact appeared, it did not arouse the slightest bit of interest in Qin Xuan. The auction lasted until evening before it ended. Amidst the heated discussions of others, Qin Xuan left the auction house in silence. He walked aimlessly on the streets of Eastcom Prefecture, as if he had lost his direction. Qin Ju silently followed behind Qin Xuan, watching as Qin Xuan lost his soul. Sir, a young man in a black suit blocked Qin Xuan's path, which also aroused Qin Ju's vigilance. As long as this young man dared to make any strange movements, she would immediately kill him. Qin Xuan looked at the young man standing in front of him in confusion and remained silent. The young man didn't mind. He presented a rectangular mechanical box in front of Qin Xuan and smiled at Qin Xuan. A gentleman asked me to give this to you. He also asked you to meet at our Changxing Hotel. He also asked me to remind you that you can only go to the appointment alone. Qin Xuan looked at the mechanical box in the young man's hand. His confused eyes gradually revealed a hint of confusion. He opened the mechanical box in his hand. When he saw what was lying inside, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. Is this the bronze sword from the auction? Qin Xuan looked at the familiar bronze sword in the mechanical box and looked at the young man in confusion. I'm just in charge of running errands. I don't know anything else. The young man smiled. If you want to know more, why don't I lead the way? The Changxing Hotel is 200 meters ahead. Qin Xuan thought for a moment, then turned to look at Qin Ju behind him. After seeing Qin Ju nod lightly, he said to the young man, lead the way. Please come with me. Under the young man's lead, Qin Xuan arrived at the Ever-Prosper Hotel. As a famous hotel in Eastcom Prefecture, it could be said to be extremely lively with many guests. Amidst the noise, Qin Xuan was led to a private room. That gentleman is inside. Please go in by yourself. After saying this, the young man turned around and left. At this time, Qin Xuan already knew the identity of the young man. He was a waiter in the Changxing Hotel. Qin Xuan watched as the young man left. Then, he turned to look at the door of the private room. He did not knock on the door. Instead, he pushed the door open and walked in. Huff, huff. The first thing Qin Xuan saw when he walked into the private room was a figure sitting at the dining table, eating and drinking. The tall stack of plates covered most of the person's figure, making it impossible for Qin Xuan to tell who it was. After this person finished eating an entire demonic beast leg, he burped happily and said to Qin Xuan, who had just entered, in terms of culinary skills, you human chefs are still better. I've been traveling all over the country and eating a lot of delicacies, but I can't get enough. TSK, TSK, TSK. What a delicacy. Qin Xuan looked at the man whose mouth was full of oil in astonishment. He said in disbelief, have you forgotten what to call me? The man looked at Qin Xuan with a subtle gaze, reminding Qin Xuan not to say the wrong thing. Faced with the man's friendly reminder, Qin Xuan's mouth twitched and said, big cousin. That's right. The man laughed and said, am I not your big cousin, Shi Shuai? Qin Xuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He never thought that he would meet the Demon King Lion Duke at this time. If it was any other time, Qin Xuan might be happy. After all, Lion Duke had helped him in his cultivation and could be considered his senior. However, he had just helped Qinju annihilate the Lion Tribe's skeleton fleet, causing the Lion Tribe to return in defeat. Now that he had met the Lion King of the Lion Tribe, it would be pure nonsense to say that he was not afraid at all. Seeing the nervous expression on Qinchuan's face, Lion Duke had a subtle expression and asked, "You seem to be very afraid of me. Did you do something wrong?" Qinchuan forced a smile and said, "I didn't do anything wrong. It's just that I'm not afraid of you. I respect you." "Oh, so you respect me." Lion Duke smiled and said, "I thought you were afraid of me because you annihilated the Lion Tribe's skeleton fleet." Hearing Lion Duke mention the annihilation of the skeleton fleet, Qinchuan's face changed. He didn't know how to respond. "Don't be afraid. Sit down." Lion Duke pointed to the seat next to him and said to Qinchuan, "If I wanted to kill you to vent my anger, I wouldn't have given you the bronze sword." Qinchuan sat down and asked Lion Duke, "Senior, were you at the auction?" "I heard there was an auction, so I went to join in the fun. I had nothing to do, so I scanned the place with my divine sense and found you. I saw that you were interested in the bronze sword, so I bought it as a gift for our reunion." Lion Duke laughed and said, "This bronze sword isn't just sharp." Qinchuan was a little surprised when he heard this. He couldn't help but ask, "Does this bronze sword have hidden secrets?" Seeing Qinchuan's curious face, Lion Duke looked at him and said, "What? You aren't afraid anymore?" Qinchuan scratched his head and said, "Didn't you tell me not to be afraid? Isn't that right, big cousin?" "Haha." Lion Duke laughed and pointed at Qinchuan. "You are funny. Very funny." If Qinchuan was afraid of Qinchuan because of the annihilation of the skeleton fleet, Lion Duke would have been angry. But now, seeing Qinchuan so calm, Lion Duke was happy. It was strange. Although I can't tell the origin of this bronze sword, I know that this is a sword that needs to be nurtured. The longer you nurture it, the more powerful it will be when it is unsheathed. Hearing Lion Duke's introduction of the bronze sword, Qinchuan's eyes couldn't help but light up. This bronze sword really suited him. Chapter 387. Thank you for the sword, Senior. Qinchuan held the bronze sword in his hand. He loved it so much that he couldn't put it down. There was probably no other sword in the world that suited him better than this one. Lion Duke saw Qinchuan's happy face and chuckled. "Don't be so happy. Let me ask you, when you helped the 10th Legion destroy my Lion Tribe's skeleton fleet, did you ever think of me, your big cousin?" Qinchuan's expression suddenly became serious. He looked at Lion Duke seriously and said, "To be honest, if I had to choose again, I would still help the 10th Legion. It's not because I don't care about you, Senior, but because I have to protect Eastern Mountain City and the people of the Star Dragon Federation." Qinchuan said this after careful consideration. He didn't want to lie to Lion Duke, and he was sure that Lion Duke didn't want to hear a lie. Therefore, he chose to be honest. If Lion Duke was angry and wanted to kill him, he could only accept his fate. Lion Duke looked at Qinchuan with deep eyes. After a while, he said, "I am very satisfied with your answer." When Qinchuan heard this, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. However, he did not show it on his face. His expression remained solemn and serious. "You are a human, and I am a monster. No matter what our personal relationship is, we should uphold justice in the face of major issues. You didn't do anything wrong by severely damaging the Lion Tribe in order to protect the human world." Lion Duke looked at Qinchuan meaningfully and said, "Moreover, I didn't want the Lion Tribe to invade Eastern Mountain." The Lion Duke was traveling through the mountains and rivers of the Star Dragon Federation. One day, when he was eating in a restaurant, he accidentally overheard someone talking about the war in the East Mountain. Only then did he learn about the Lion Tribe's invasion of the human world. After learning the whole story, he was extremely shocked and angry. He didn't understand why the Lion Tribe would appear in the East Mountain. Looking at Lion Duke's gloomy face, Qinchuan was puzzled. He asked, "Is there something wrong with the Lion Tribe appearing in the front line?" "Of course not." Lion Duke snorted coldly and said, The lion tribe is located in the center of the demon realm, and we protect the demon court. As long as you humans don't charge straight into the demon court, our men don't have to participate in the war. But now our lion tribe has suddenly appeared on the front line. Isn't this strange? After listening to Lion Duke's explanation, Qin Xuan finally realized the problem. He pondered for a moment and asked, could it be that the lion tribe took the initiative to fight? Lion Baron sneered. I don't think that idiot Fan has the guts to take the initiative to fight. In my opinion, the appearance of a lion division at the front lines must be related to lion fun. Qin Xuan looked at Lion Duke and asked, Senior, are you planning to go to the lion tribe to find out what's going on? Lion Duke was silent for a moment. Then he picked up the wine jug on the table and took a big gulp. He then said to Qin Xuan, although I'm no longer the king of the lion tribe, and have even been expelled from the tribe, there are still many of my old friends and subordinates in the lion tribe. If I don't find out what's going on, I won't be at ease. Qin Xuan nodded, indicating that he understood Lion Duke's feelings. Kid, why don't you come with me? Lion Duke looked at Qin Xuan with a subtle expression and said, I'll take you to see the demeanor of the lion tribe's young men. They will definitely give you a warm welcome. Qin Xuan's face almost turned green when he heard this. Going to the lion tribe? A warm welcome? I'm afraid I'll be torn apart by the lion tribe. Seeing the change in Qin Xuan's expression, Lion Duke laughed and said, What? Do you think I can't protect you? Don't worry, but I'll use my monster powers to disguise you. They won't be able to recognize you. Even though Lion Duke had given his word, Qin Xuan was still a little nervous. He couldn't help but ask, Big cousin, you come and go like the wind. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to bring a burden like me along? There's nothing inappropriate about it. I can come and go like the wind, and I can also come and go like the wind with you. Lion Duke smiled and said, Don't even think about rejecting me. You're going with me. Qin Xuan smiled bitterly. Lion Duke had already insisted that he should come with him. If he were to refuse, then he'd be the one being shameless. Lion Duke was smiling at him as if they had a good relationship. But if they were to fall out, then he'd be the one to suffer. I still have an elder with me. I want to talk to him first. Qin Xuan had a headache. He said to Lion Duke, Big cousin, wait for me here for a moment. I'll be right back. I know. You're talking about that Qinju. Go. Lion Duke looked in the direction of the door and said, She's guarding outside. Qin Xuan was a little surprised. He stood up and walked out of the room. He opened the door and looked around, but he didn't find any trace of Qinju. At this moment, Qinju's figure suddenly appeared in front of him and asked, Are you looking for me? When Qin Xuan saw that Qinju was really outside the door, he said to Qinju, Why did you follow me? I'm worried about you. Qinju looked at the private room with vigilance and said to Qin Xuan, I can't see through that person's strength. With Qinju's perfected gold core stage, the only person who could make her unable to see through him was the nascent soul stage. Although Qinju didn't dare believe it, she had to admit that the person who was chatting and laughing with Qin Xuan in the private room was most likely a nascent soul stage cultivator. Of course, it wasn't impossible that the other party had a treasure that could conceal his aura. However, from the fact that Qin Xuan had come out to look for her, the other party had clearly discovered her hiding outside the private room. This meant that the other party's cultivation was definitely not low. He's a relative of mine. Qin Xuan awkwardly explained to Qinju, He's a cousin of mine. Cousin? Qinju frowned. Why didn't I know you had such a cousin? Qinju had a very clear understanding of Qin Xuan's network. She had never known that Qin Xuan had such a high cultivation cousin. It's a long story. You just need to know that you're not his match. Don't think about testing him. At this moment, Qin Xuan had no choice but to remind Qinju. If Qinju wanted to test the Lion Duke and ended up finding out something, it would be bad. When he heard Qin Xuan say that he wasn't a match for his cousin, Qinju understood that Qin Xuan was vaguely reminding him that his cousin was a nascent soul stage cultivator. His guess was right. My cousin wants to do something with me, so you can go back to Eastern Mountain City first. I'll go back by myself after a while. As for my safety, you don't have to worry. Where are you going? To a place where you should be very enthusiastic. Very enthusiastic? Qin Ju's face was full of question marks. Could it be that he was going to acknowledge his relatives? Chapter 388. Lion Lord was never a person who liked to procrastinate. After deciding to go to the lion tribe, he waited for Qin Chuan to finish his dinner. Then, he took Qin Chuan out of the city and went straight to the front line of East Mountain. Under Lion Baron's guidance, Qin Chuan was able to move freely within a radius of 10 meters with Lion Baron as the center. The feeling of flying was simply too wonderful for Qin Chuan. Is this what it feels like to fly in the air? It's a little surreal. Qin Chuan looked at his feet with a curious expression. The feeling of stepping on clouds was a little surreal, but it was really cool and exciting. If you want to fly, you have to be at least to the Golden Core stage. Lion Baron looked at Qin Chuan and said, "With your cultivation speed, it won't take long for you to be able to fly." Just as Qin Chuan was about to reply, Lion Baron's expression changed slightly. He said to Qin Chuan, "There's a battle ahead." After saying that, Lion Baron carried Qin Chuan and flew towards the battle. When they arrived, they saw two middle-aged men besieging a young man. "Zhao Xiang, if you know what's good for you, you'd better hand it over. Otherwise, you'll lose your life for nothing." A middle-aged man with a goatee stared at the young man viciously. Every move he made was a killing move, not showing any mercy. When a young man called Zhao Xiang heard the words of the man with the goatee, he couldn't help but show a look of anger. He said sternly, "Su Ying, Wang Jie, aren't you afraid that the Zhao family will come after you for attacking me? To think that I treated you as my brothers. I didn't expect you to be so cruel and unscrupulous." "Ha ha, this is the wilderness. Who would know?" The bearded man sneered and slashed at Zhao Xiang with a murderous intent. Zhao Xiang looked sad and angry. He roared, "Who can save me? The Zhao family will reward you handsomely." Above the clouds, Lion Duke looked at the battle on the ground. He said to Qin Chuan, "Take a guess. Why do you think they're fighting?" Qin Chuan pondered for a moment before replying, "I don't know." Lion Duke laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "These three people all participated in the auction of Guang and Bank, and they were in the same box, number 106. Hearing the Lion Duke mention the number of the box, Qin Chuan could not help but reveal a look of surprise on his face. He said, "Are they fighting for the entry ticket to the Carefree secret area?" "That's right." The Lion Duke nodded and said, "The entry ticket to the unfettered secret territory was bought by this Zhao Xiang at a high price. At that time, these two people were tempted. I didn't expect to meet them here." Qin Chuan glanced at Lion Count with a subtle look in his eyes and asked, "Senior, how much do you know about the Carefree Secret Realm?" "The Carefree Secret Realm is a good place, at least for the demon race." Lion Duke chuckled and said, "Back then, I also entered the Carefree Secret Realm and obtained a lot of fortuitous encounters. With your ability, you should be able to live a very comfortable life inside. What about these people?" Qin Chuan pointed at Zhao Xiang and the other two and asked, "Senior, what do you think of the level of these three people?" Lion Duke sneered and said, "These three people are lucky to be able to survive the first 3 days." Qin Chuan was not surprised by Lion Duke's answer. This was because Qin Ju had once told him that those who were not from the aristocratic families and sects were just cannon fodder when they entered the Carefree Secret Realm. At this moment, Zhao Xiang could no longer hold on under the siege of the two middle-aged men. Just as he was about to lose his life, he hurriedly took out a brocade box from his bosom and threw it into the air. He shouted, "I'll give you the entry ticket. Let me live." When Zhao Xiang threw the admission ticket into the air, the goatee and the bearded man gave up chasing Zhao Xiang at the same time and rushed towards the admission ticket that was thrown into the air. After a short fight, the admission ticket fell into the bearded man's hands. "Wang Jie, what do you mean?" Su Ying stared at Beard with sharp eyes and said, "At that time, we agreed that this entry ticket would belong to me. Are you going back on your word now?" "Hee hee, Brother Su, you must be joking. How can I go back on my word? I just feel that Brother Su should first show your sincerity and let me see the 3 million spiritual value points you promised me. right? Wang Jie's appearance was rough, but his mind was meticulous. If Su Ying obtained the entry ticket and Su Ying refused to give him the spiritual value points, wouldn't his efforts be in vain? Su Ying coldly snorted and said, "All right, I'll give you the spiritual value points now. I hope you can keep your promise and give me the entry ticket." Of course, Wang Jie agreed straightforwardly. Compared to entering the carefree secret realm to search for treasures, he preferred real spiritual value points. After making the agreement, Su Ying took out a spiritual value card from his bosom and threw it at Wang Jie. When Wang Jie saw the spiritual value card flying over, he subconsciously reached out to catch it. At the same time, a black centipede suddenly appeared below the spiritual value card and bit Wang Jie's hand. "Ah!" Wang Jie cried out in pain. He exerted force in his hand and crushed the centipede. Looking at the black centipede that was emitting a foul smell in his palm, Wang Jie asked Su Ying with a gloomy face, "Brother Su, what do you mean by this? Can't you tell what I mean?" Su Ying sneered, "This centipede of mine is a heavenly poison centipede. If you get bitten by this centipede, you'll die in less than 10 minutes. Ha ha ha." Hearing Su Ying's complacent laughter, Wang Jie's face could not help but turn even uglier. He said angrily, "You want to kill me? Then I'll make sure that your plan fails." As he spoke, Wang Jie opened the brocade box in his hand, intending to destroy the entry ticket for the carefree secret realm. However, to his astonishment, the brocade box was empty. Seeing that the brocade box was empty, Wang Jie's expression was first astonished, then turned into madness. He laughed loudly and threw the empty brocade box in front of Su Ying, loudly saying, "It's empty. Ha, it's actually empty. For something that doesn't exist, I've lost my life. Ha ha." Su Ying's eyes were gloomy as he stared at the box that had been thrown on the ground. His anger soared to the heavens. Previously, at the auction house, he had clearly seen Zhao Xiang place the entry ticket into the brocade box and hide it close to his body. During this entire process, Zhao Xiang had never left his line of sight. He should not have had the opportunity to take the item out. "Su Ying, you won't live either." Wang Jie glared at Su Ying with venomous hatred. "You've offended the Zhao family. Zhao Xiang will never let you off. If anyone is to die, you'll die first." The enraged Wang Jie roared angrily. He stepped forward and viciously stabbed his knife into Wang Jie's chest, killing him on the spot. Chapter 389. After killing Wang Jie, Su Ying quickly ran in the direction Zhao Xiang had fled. He wanted to kill Zhao Xiang, but with his own strength, he might not be able to defeat Zhao Xiang. Seeing Su Ying leave, Lion Lord said to Qin Chuan, "The show is over. We should continue our journey." Lion Lord carried Qin Chuan forward. Qin Chuan looked at Lion Lord with a complicated expression and asked, "Why is it that you monsters are united, while we humans are always scheming against each other?" Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Lion Lord laughed and said, "Don't you know? Aren't you humans greedy and selfish creatures? There are also glorious and great existences in the human race." Qin Chuan retorted, "Not everyone is selfish, but the vast majority of people are selfish and self-centered." Lion Lord looked at Qin Chuan and said, "This is the bad side of you humans. It's deeply rooted in your thinking. Mister, you seem to have a lot of prejudice against humans." Qin Chuan frowned. Hearing Lion Lord talk about humans in such a way made him a little upset. "It's not that I'm prejudiced against you humans," Lion Duke said indifferently. "It's just that the things you humans have done are too dirty. Have you forgotten why Senior Azure Dragon Song Hao was trapped in the Dragon Spirit Lake?" Hearing Lion Lord mention Song Hao, Qin Chuan didn't know how to respond. "Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. There's no point in arguing about it. It won't change anything. It'll only make us feel bad." Lion Lord knew that Qin Chuan had a knot in his heart, so he didn't talk about it anymore. Just like that, the two of them moved forward in silence. Soon, they arrived at the Eastern Mountain front line, at the scene of the great battle that had broken out that day. Now that a few days had passed, The battlefield had long been cleaned up. However, the ground was still dark red, showing the world how tragic the battle had been that day. Looking at the ground beneath his feet, Lion Duke gritted his teeth and said to Qin Chuan, "My lion tribe has 100,000 good sons. They should have lived a peaceful and happy life in the demon realm, but now they've been forcefully conscripted to the front line to fight against you humans. Blood has been spilled, and as the Lion King, Lionfen deserves to die." Looking at the angry Lion Duke, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and asked, "How are you going to find them? I could track them down through their blood." Lion Duke took a deep breath and calmed himself down. "I hope they're all still alive." 3,000 kilometers to the east of East Mountain, there was a mountain called Iron Teeth Mountain. This was where the Iron Wolf tribe of the Demon Clan resided. With this place as their base, the Iron Wolf tribe had been constantly sending troops to attack the front line of East Mountain for 30 years. Although the Iron Wolf tribe hasn't been able to break through the East Mountain's front line in the past 30 years, they've caused great damage to the front line. Now that the Lion tribe has arrived, the Iron Wolf tribe can see the hope of breaking through the East Mountain's front line. Their attitude towards the Lion tribe can be said to be very friendly. The Lion tribe is stationed at the foot of Iron Tooth Mountain. That day, they had a great battle with the 10th Legion. Now, only 60,000 of them are left. It's a great loss. In the commander's tent, Lion Lord sat on a chair and looked at the werewolf in front of him with a gloomy expression. "Iron Thorn, what's the meaning of this?" The werewolf called Iron Thorn laughed and said to Lion Lord, "General, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm just here to express my condolences on behalf of the Iron Wolf tribe. What's the meaning of this? You just asked me when I'm going to send troops to attack the East Mountain. Are you here to express your condolences?" Lion Lord snorted, obviously very dissatisfied with this. "General, this isn't my intention. This is the intention of the big shots of the Demon Court. Isn't the Lion tribe sent to the East Mountain's front line to break through the East Mountain's front line? It's just one battle. Don't you plan to continue?" Iron Thorn looked at Lion Lord playfully and said, "If you don't want to send troops, it's fine. You just need to report to the Demon Court." "Are you threatening me?" Shirgu coldly glared at Tai Ci. "Has your Iron Wolf tribe become so bold now? Do you really think there's no one left in the Lion tribe?" "General, I don't dare to threaten you. I just want a definite answer." Iron Thorn spread his hands and said helplessly, "Even if you kill me, someone else will come to ask this question. General, I think you'd better give me a reply." Lion Lord's face was livid. If it weren't for the fact that he was living under someone else's roof, he would never let Iron Thorn stand in front of him and say such words. 3 days. Lion Lord suppressed the anger in his heart. In 3 days, the Lion tribe will send troops again. Then I know how to reply when I go back. Iron Thorn smiled and said to Lion Lord, "If General has no other orders, I'll take my leave." "Get lost," Lion Lord roared. If Iron Thorn didn't leave, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold back his anger and would tear Iron Thorn to pieces. After Iron Thorn left, Lion Lord slammed his fist on the long table in front of him, smashing it into pieces. He said angrily, "The Iron Wolf tribe has gone too far." Lionheart, who was sitting on the side, looked at Lion Lord with a complicated expression. He sighed helplessly and said, "General, now that we're living under someone else's roof and the Lion King has lost his power in the Demon Court, there's no other way except to continue attacking East Mountain," as they said. "Lion King, Lion King." Lion Lord's expression was ferocious. Lionfen has harmed the Lion tribe. At this time, Lionheart didn't remind Lion Lord to be careful with his words, because he knew that Lion Lord wouldn't listen to anything now. Military Counselor, in 3 days, the Lion tribe will attack again. You need to plan more. After the anger, Lion Lord sighed, and his face became haggard at this moment. The next battle was in 3 days. If they lost again, the Lion tribe might really be removed from the Demon Court, and there would be no Lion tribe from then on. What a joke. Since when did we, the mighty Lion Clan, become a mere wolf dog that can ride on top of our heads and act like a tyrant? Lion Lord was stunned when he heard the familiar voice. He immediately turned his head and looked behind him. When he saw the familiar young face, he couldn't help but show a touch of excitement. "King, my king." Lionheart also looked at the figure standing behind Lion Lord in disbelief. It was the young figure that had appeared countless times in his dreams. Now he saw it again with his own eyes. Lion King, the Real Lion King, is back. Chapter 390. In the commander's tent, Lion Gu looked at the familiar figure standing in front of him and couldn't help but burst into tears. Lion Duke saw Lion Gu crying and couldn't help but snort coldly. "What are you crying for, you useless thing? What a waste of my years of teaching you." In the face of Lion Duke's reprimand, Lion Gu didn't feel any grievance or anger in his heart, only boundless joy. Lion Duke didn't bother to look at Lion Duke and turned his gaze to Lionheart, who was sitting on the side, with a complicated look in his eyes. "Old man, I really didn't expect you to be running around with the army at such an old age. Is there no young talent in the Lion tribe now? Why we need you to stand up for us?" Lionheart couldn't help but burst into tears when he heard Lion Duke's words. He choked and couldn't speak. Ever since Lion Duke was injured and left the Lion tribe, he hadn't seen Lion Duke for a long time. Now that he saw Lion Duke again, he really didn't know what to say and could only wash his face with tears. "My king, your face." Lion Gu seemed to have discovered something at this time, and his haggard face couldn't help but reveal a touch of expectation. After Lionheart was reminded by Lion Gu, he also noticed this special point. He remembered that when Lionheart left the Lion tribe, his face was extremely old and haggard because of the damage to his foundation. Now that he saw Lionheart again, he seemed to have regained his youth. Could it be that Lionheart had recovered his old Demon King realm? Lion Duke nodded in the face of Lion Gu and Lionheart's expectant eyes. "You guessed right. I have indeed healed the damage to my foundation. In fact, I have improved a lot compared to before." Lion Gu couldn't help but tremble when he heard Lion Duke's answer. "My king, come back. The Lion tribe needs you." Now that the Lion tribe was pushed aside and sent to the front line, the fundamental reason was that the current Lion King, Fun, had lost his power in the Demon Court. If Lion Duke could return to the Lion tribe, with his prestige in the Demon Court, he would definitely be able to lead the Lion tribe back to its former peak. Lionheart also looked at Lion Duke with an expectant gaze. He believed that with his and Lion Gu's leadership ability in the Lion tribe, coupled with Lion Duke's remaining prestige in the past, as long as they raised their arms and called for it, Fun would definitely abdicate. However, Lion Duke shook his head and said, "I am no longer the king of the Lion tribe. Back then, when Lionfin joined forces with those fellows to drive me out, none of you dared to speak up for me, not even a single word. Now that I have regained my former self, you want me to lead you back to your peak again? Is that reasonable?" Lionheart and Ancient Lion's faces turned from hopeful to desperate and pained. Back then, they really didn't speak for Lion Duke because he was completely crippled and could no longer lead the Lion tribe. They needed a new Demon King to ascend the throne to maintain the Lion tribe's position in the Demon Court. At that time, none of them thought that Fun would be such a brainless idiot. Facing Lion Duke's question, they couldn't say anything but shame. Qin Xuan, who was standing next to Lion Duke, looked at him strangely. Lion Duke was clearly very worried about the Lion tribe's safety before they came, but now he was acting like he didn't care at all. If you really don't care, then don't come. A classic example of saying bad things, but acting righteous. Lion Duke didn't speak to the speechless Lionheart and Lion Gu. He turned his head to look at Qin Xuan and saw that Qin Xuan was watching the show. He immediately snorted and said to Qin Xuan, "What are you looking at?" "Ahem, it's nothing." Qin Xuan lowered his head and whispered, "I'm just looking." At this time, Lionheart and Lion Gu noticed that there was another person beside Lion Duke, and he looked somewhat familiar. "This is one of my juniors." Lion Duke looked at Lion Gu and said, "If it weren't for this junior's help, I wouldn't have recovered." After hearing Lion Duke's introduction to Qin Xuan, Lion Gu and Lionheart were in awe. Whether or not Lion Duke was willing to return to the Lion tribe to help them through this difficult time, he would always be their king. Since Qin Chuan had helped Lion Duke before, he was their benefactor. Qin Chuan felt very awkward in the face of Lion Gu and Lionheart's respectful gazes. It was only a few days ago that he destroyed the Lion tribe's skeleton fleet. At that time, Lion Gu really wanted to tear him apart. But now, he had become someone Lion Gu respected. It was a very strange feeling. I saw what happened just now. The Iron Wolf tribe asked you to lead the attack. It's clear that they want to exhaust the Lion tribe. I'm very confused. What is Lion Fan doing? Lion Duke raised his own question to Lion Gu. Lion Fan was the Lion King. So how could he just watch the Lion tribe get beaten up? Without the Lion tribe, what was his Lion King worth? Lion Gu's face showed a touch of anger when he heard Lion Duke mention Lion Fan. He gritted his teeth and said, Lion Fan harmed the Lion tribe. Tell me the details. Lion Duke frowned and looked at Lion Gu. Let me do the talking. Lionheart sighed and said to Lion Duke, Sherfan met the Demon King's most beloved princess, Princess Rao, by chance at a banquet held by the Demon Court. He was shocked. Then, by chance, he met Princess Rao again. Who would have thought that he would be lustful towards Princess Rao and wanted to take her by force? However, he was repelled by Princess Rao's protector. The Demon King was furious and immediately captured Sherfan and locked him in the ghost prison. Sherfan was worried that the Demon King would execute him, so he begged the Demon King to let him go this time with the condition that the entire Lion tribe would go to the front lines. When Lionheart said this, the anger on Lionheart's face could no longer be concealed. His hair stood on end as he growled. So, you were sent to the East Mountain front line? Lionheart nodded and said helplessly, As the Demon King, Lion Fan has the right to make such a decision. Coupled with the pressure from the Demon Court and the Golden Leopard tribe adding fuel to the fire, we had no choice but to come to the East Mountain front line. There was no way out. So all of this is Lion Fan's fault for being blinded by lust. Lion Duke gnashed his teeth. If Lion Fan appeared in front of him now, he would definitely beat Lion Fan's lower body into meat paste. Qin Chuan, who was standing at the side, was also speechless. This Lion Fan was really a weirdo. As the Demon King, he could do such a thing. He had no bottom line at all. Now that we have lost the first battle, the Demon Court must be dissatisfied. Without the skeletal fleet, we have no chance of winning against the 10th Legion of the Star Dragon Federation. Lion Gu looked at Lion Duke with pleading eyes, hoping that Lion Duke could save the Lion tribe from this disaster. Chapter 391. In the face of Lion King's pleading eyes, Lion King couldn't reject him as coldly as he did before. He wasn't indifferent to the Lion tribe, after all. His coldness was just a way of venting his dissatisfaction. Just as Qin Chuan had said, if he really didn't want to help the Lion tribe get through this crisis, he wouldn't have appeared here. It's impossible for me to return to the Lion tribe, but I can help you this time. Lion King looked at Lion King and said, I am no longer your king, so don't bring up the past again. Lion King was prepared for this, but when he heard Lion King's words, he still felt sad. Lion King turned to Qin Chuan and asked, Do you have any ideas? Let's hear them. Qin Chuan looked at Lion Lord in shock. He pointed at his nose and said, Me? What? Shouldn't you be the one? Lion King raised an eyebrow and said, Have you forgotten what you've done? Qin Chuan was speechless. He thought Lion King wouldn't care about the destruction of the Lion tribe's skeletal warships, but he didn't expect him to be here waiting for him. Lion King ignored Qin Chuan's annoyance and said to Qin Chuan, I've given you the task. Think of a solution now. I'll give you 5 minutes. Qin Chuan looked at Lion King and said, If you want me to think of a solution, at least give me a direction. How far do you want me to go? Lion King thought for a moment and said, Let's solve the problem first. Simple. Qin Chuan didn't even think about it before he said, All you have to do is go around the Steel Wolf tribe and show them what you've got. Then, the Lion tribe can stay here for as long as they want. No one will say no. Lion King frowned and said, I've made myself clear. I will not return to the Lion tribe. Lionheart and Ancient Lion's faces turned gloomy when they heard Lion Duke say this again. They could tell that Lion Duke was determined not to return this time. Their silence was an unacceptable betrayal to Lion Duke. Qin Chuan smiled and said, "Did I say I wanted you to return to the Lion tribe? I just want you to show your face, walk around, and take care of a few guys who are not pleasing to the eye. It's that simple." After hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Lion King thought for a moment and looked at Qin Chuan. He said, "You want me to intimidate these people and make them stop targeting the Lion tribe? As long as the Demon Court confirms that you have recovered to the Demon King realm, they will definitely not continue to target the Lion tribe. When the crisis of the Lion tribe is resolved, you can go wherever you want. The Demon Court can't just order you back. After all, the Demon Court didn't do things properly back then, so they should have some scruples about you. As long as you don't do anything to embarrass the Demon Court, I think the final result should be a happy ending." Qin Chuan's analysis was logical and reasonable. Lion King thought for a moment and decided to accept Qin Chuan's suggestion. "Then let's go. Accompany me for a walk." Lion King looked at Lion King and said, "You two stay here." The camp of the Iron Wolf tribe was located on the mountainside of the Iron Teeth Mountain. The terrain was steep and easy to defend, but difficult to attack. Of course, this only applied to the land troops. If they were attacked from the air, it would be dangerous. At this time, Tai Ci, who had returned from the Lion tribe's camp, arrived at the commander's tent without any hindrance. He saw the commander of the Iron Wolf tribe, Tai Peng. Compared to Tai Ci, Tai Peng's body was several times bigger. Sitting in the tent, he was like a small mountain. He looked at Tai Ci, who walked into the tent with indifferent eyes, and asked in a deep voice, "Have you finished what I told you to do?" When Tai Ci heard this, he immediately said respectfully to Tai Peng, "Grand Marshal, this subordinate has already completed the task you gave me. Gu has personally agreed to send troops again within 3 days." Hearing Tai Ci's answer, Tai Peng nodded with satisfaction and said, "As long as Gu agrees, then our mission will be completed. If he doesn't want to send troops, then someone will jump out and cause trouble for him." "Commander, after the Lion tribe is completely destroyed, do you think we can be transferred back to the Celestial Monster Plane?" Tai Ci asked cautiously. Since the Iron Wolf tribe was transferred to the Iron Teeth Mountain 30 years ago, they had been fighting with the humans in the East Mountain. In these 30 years, they had spent a lot of energy and manpower on the war. Their overall strength had not improved at all. They had been longing to return to the Celestial Monster Plane for a long time. Now that the opportunity was in front of them, if they missed it, they really didn't know how long they would have to wait. "You shouldn't ask about these things." Tai Peng looked at Tai Ci indifferently and said, "Wolf King and I will do our best for the future of the Iron Wolf tribe. This time, we can only succeed. Failure is not an option." After being warned by Tai Peng, Tai Ci's face immediately showed a touch of fear and said in a low voice, "I know I'm wrong. Well, if there's nothing else, you can leave." Tai Peng waved his hand casually. He knew that Tai Ci was also thinking about the future of the Iron Wolf tribe, so after warning Tai Ci, he didn't want to pursue the matter further. After Tai Ci left, Tai Peng picked up a strange disc-shaped stone on the table. This stone was milky white and looked like a strange colored mirror. After Tai Peng injected his demon energy into this strange stone, there were some ripples on the stone. After a moment, a slightly ferocious face appeared on the stone. Seeing this face, Tai Peng's face immediately showed a touch of respect and said in a low voice, "Wolf King." The man called Wolf King looked at Tai Peng calmly and asked, "You contacted me now. Is the problem of the Lion tribe solved?" "Yes." Tai Peng nodded and said, "Lion King has agreed to send troops again in 3 days. We have already fulfilled the request of the Golden Leopard tribe." "Yes, we have fulfilled the request of the Golden Leopard tribe. They should also help us return to the Celestial Monster Plane." Wolf King let out a long sigh. "The Celestial Monster Plane, we have left there for 30 years. The empty territory of the Lion tribe is very good. It is very suitable for our Iron Wolf tribe to recuperate." Chapter 392. In the sky of the Iron Tooth Mountain, Lion Baron was standing on top of the clouds with Qin in his arms. He looked down at the camp of the Iron Wolf tribe and asked Qin, "How do you think we should stroll around the camp of the Iron Wolf tribe?" Although Lion Baron already knew what to do, he didn't know how to do it. Hearing this, Qin chuckled and said, "Our purpose in strolling around the Iron Wolf tribe's main camp is to demonstrate our power. Naturally, the more arrogant we are, the better. If it were me, I would definitely walk straight into the main gate of the Iron Wolf tribe's main camp openly. If anyone dares to stop me, I would slap them to death." Lion Baron looked at Qin in a subtle way and said, "Why do I feel like you are the Demon King?" Lion Baron didn't know if it was an illusion or not, but he felt that Qin was very arrogant. Qin looked at Lion Baron and said, "I just feel like I am in your shoes. If you don't like it, I can be a little more low-key." Qin was a little nervous when he first met Lion Baron, but after getting along with him for some time, Qin gradually relaxed. He would also make some harmless jokes within Lion Baron's tolerance to promote the relationship between the two. It could be said that Lion Baron had a good grasp of the details. "Then let's go down and take a stroll. I want to see if the gate of the Iron Wolf tribe will let me in or not," Lion Baron said, and directly landed on the mountainside with Qin. He stood straight in front of the gate of the Iron Wolf tribe's camp. The sudden appearance of Lion Baron and Qin almost instantly attracted the attention of the guards in front of the gate of the Iron Wolf tribe's camp. A soldier in full armor took a step forward and pointed a spear at Lion Baron and Qin. He shouted, "Who are you two?" In response to the soldier's question, Qin looked at Lion Duke and consciously took a step back. From now on, he was just here to watch the show. Lion Duke was the main character. "Are you asking me?" Lion Baron looked at the soldier calmly. He had no intention of answering the soldier's question. "If I'm not asking you, then who are you asking?" The soldier shouted angrily. "Trespassers will be killed without mercy." Bang! A crisp sound was heard in front of the gate of the Iron Wolf tribe's camp. The soldier who shouted at Lion Baron suddenly turned into a pile of meat paste. Blood splashed everywhere. Seeing this bloody scene, the vigilant expressions on the faces of the other guards of the Iron Wolf tribe stiffened. They were completely unable to understand what had just happened. How did their comrade suddenly turn into a pile of minced meat? "Trespassers will be killed without mercy?" Lion Baron snorted. He looked at the rest of the guards with cold eyes and said in a deep voice, "Those who dare to stop me will be killed without mercy." At this time, hearing Lion Baron's cold and domineering words, the rest of the guards showed a touch of panic and fear on their faces. Some of them couldn't help but shout, "Enemy attack!" When the shout of enemy attack sounded, a low humming sound was heard in the camp of the Iron Wolf tribe. That was the signal of the Iron Wolf tribe to assemble. Lion Baron couldn't help but have a playful look on his face when he heard the familiar sound of the horn. He said to Qin, "I haven't seen the Iron Wolf tribe in a long time. Today, I'm going to have a good look at the style of the Iron Wolf tribe." After saying that, Lion Baron walked into the camp of the Iron Wolf tribe. None of the guards at the gate dared to stop him. Qin followed behind Lion Baron. Looking at those guards who were too scared to move, he couldn't help but have a touch of envy on his face. This was the deterrent power of a demon king. Sure enough, in this world, the fist was the biggest reason. In the commander's tent of the Iron Wolf tribe, Tai Peng looked at the adjutant beside him with a gloomy look and asked, "What happened outside?" The adjutant replied, "Someone trespassed into the camp. Now that the guards have gathered, I think it won't be long before they can kill him. It's not a big deal." Hearing the adjutant's answer, Tai Peng slightly frowned and asked, "Who has the guts to trespass into our Iron Wolf tribe's camp? Could it be an expert from the human side?" "It's possible," the adjutant whispered. "I'll go and confirm it." In the adjutant's opinion, if he went over now, he would see the corpse of the trespasser. As for whether it was a human or a demon, he would know at a glance. However, just as the adjutant was about to leave the commander's tent to check the situation, a figure rushed into the commander's tent in a panic. "Commander, something bad has happened." Looking at the officer lying on the ground covered in blood, Tai Peng frowned and asked, "What's the situation outside?" "That trespasser What happened to him? Tell me. The adjutant pulled the officer up from the ground and asked loudly. The officer's face was full of horror, and he shouted, "He killed all of our guards. He killed all of them with one slap." Hearing the officer's answer, the adjutant's face couldn't help but reveal a touch of astonishment. Just as he was questioning the authenticity of the officer's words, Tai Peng stood up and said in a deep voice, "It seems that the intruder is at least a human expert in the peak of the Jindan realm. It just so happens that my hands are itching recently. Let me go and meet him." Just as Tai Peng was about to walk out of the commander's tent to meet the intruder, a loud and clear lion's roar suddenly rang out in the movie. "Who is the commander of the Iron Wolf tribe? Come out and meet me now. Otherwise, I'll kill you all." Hearing the lion's roar, Tai Peng was stunned for a moment. Then, his face revealed a touch of disbelief and shock. "This voice is..." Tai Peng couldn't believe his ears. Wasn't that guy dead? Bang! A strong gale whistled over, flipping the entire commander's tent to the ground and emitting a rumbling sound. Under Tai Peng's terrified gaze, a tall and mighty figure slowly walked in front of him. "I was wondering who it was. So it's you, little guy. After not seeing you for so many years, you've become a commander." Lion Duke looked at Tai Peng with a dull gaze and said those words that made Tai Peng tremble. At this moment, Tai Peng's mind was in a mess. Even his speech became somewhat unclear. "Oh, what? Why am I still alive and not dead?" Lion Duke patted Tai Peng's shoulder lightly and said, "It's fine. If you have something to say it slowly. I'm not in a hurry." Facing the calm Lion Duke, Tai Peng was stunned for a while before he recovered. Then, he immediately knelt on one knee and said in an extremely fearful voice, "Tai Peng greets, Lion King." Chapter 393. Tai Peng had a very deep impression of Lion Duke. 100 years ago, Lion Duke could be said to be the most domineering and arrogant person in the entire demon court other than the Demon King. His domineering and arrogant capital was his nearly invincible strength. Even the Demon King had to be polite when he saw Lion Duke and call him Brother Duke. One incident was still fresh in Tai Peng's memory. Back then, when their Iron Wolf tribe's Wolf King had just ascended to the throne, he was in high spirits and arrogant. During a banquet of the Demon Court, he provoked the Lion Duke and was beaten up on the spot. If the Demon Emperor hadn't stepped in to stop him, perhaps the Wolf King would have died at the hands of the Lion Duke. At that time, as the Wolf King's guard, he followed the Wolf King and witnessed the whole process of Lion Duke beating up the Wolf King. Even now, when he thought about it, he still felt that it was bloody and terrifying. From then on, Lion Duke left an indelible impression in his heart. Originally, Tai Peng thought that after Lion Duke left the Lion tribe with injuries, he would be able to break free from the shadow of that year. However, today, when he saw Lion Duke's majestic and domineering appearance again, he realized that he was wrong. Lion Duke was still the Lion King from back then, a terrifying existence that made his soul tremble. Therefore, after confirming the identity of the Lion Duke, Tai Peng almost subconsciously knelt before the Lion Duke, offering his highest respect. Looking at Tai Peng kneeling on the ground with his forehead on the ground, Lion Duke laughed and said, "I remember you. You were Tai Ming's guard." Tai Ming was the current Wolf King, the one who was beaten up by Lion Duke. Hearing Lion Duke mention Tai Ming, Tai Peng's heart couldn't help but tremble. He whispered, "Wolf King isn't in the camp. It doesn't matter if he's here or not." Lion Duke looked at Tai Peng calmly and said, "Just now, some little guys wanted to stop me and even attacked me. I killed them. Do you have a problem with that? Those who dare to stop the Lion King will be killed without mercy." Tai Peng didn't dare to have a problem with that. Even if he did, he wouldn't dare to say it out loud. If he dared to say it out loud, his fate wouldn't be any better than those guards who were killed by Lion Duke. "You're a smart man. You should know why I'm here." Lion Duke looked at the frightened guards kneeling on the ground and said to Tai Peng, "I don't care who's behind this. Since I'm here, you should know what to do." "I know." Tai Peng had a bitter look on his face. Of course, he understood what Lion Duke meant. A brainless demon king like Finn was nothing to worry about. However, Lion Duke was an expert with both strength and wisdom. Even a demon emperor wouldn't easily offend him, let alone a mere iron wolf tribe. If the golden leopard tribe was dissatisfied, then the leopard king could go and confront the lion duke. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Lion Lord looked at Qin Chuan and asked, "Is there anything else you'd like to say?" Being called out by Lion Duke, Qin Chuan was stunned for a moment. Then he pointed at the ring on Tai Peng's thick finger and asked, "Can I ask him for this thing?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lion Duke couldn't help but look at the ring on Tai Peng's finger. Then he laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "You're really smart. If you want it, then go ahead." When Tai Peng, who was kneeling on the ground, heard Lion Duke's words, he did not hesitate to take off the ring on his finger. He respectfully handed it over to Qin Chuan and said, "Young master, I have already erased the imprint on the ring. You could drip your blood on it at any time." "Thank you." Qin Chuan smiled as he took the ring from Tai Peng's hand and said, "With this thing, I should be able to store more things in the carefree secret territory." That's right. The ring that Qin Chuan asked for from Tai Peng was an extremely rare storage ring. Qin Chuan had only heard of this thing, but had never seen it before. Today, he had the opportunity to follow behind Lion Duke and bully him. Of course, he wouldn't be polite. Lion Baron saw that Qin Chuan had taken the storage ring in his hand. So, he waved his big sleeves, wrapped Qin Chuan, and soared into the sky. They disappeared from the Iron Wolf tribe's camp. Tai Peng had been kneeling on the ground for a full 5 minutes. Then, he slowly stood up. The expression on his face was extremely complicated. "General, the 3,000 guards are all dead." The adjutant looked at Tai Peng with grief in his eyes. Those were 3,000 guards, and they were all dead in the blink of an eye. Tai Peng took a deep breath and said to the adjutant, "Go find Tai Ci and execute him. Also, thoroughly investigate the whole camp. Anyone who has spoken rudely to the lion tribe will be severely punished." Hearing Tai Peng's words, no matter how sad the adjutant was, he could only nod and agree. He knew that the Iron Wolf tribe couldn't afford to provoke Lion Duke. In the sky, Qin Chuan couldn't wait to bite his finger and drip his blood on the storage ring. When the blood entered the storage ring, Qin Chuan felt that there was a telepathic connection between him and the ring. He could control the storage ring as he wished. The storage ring space wasn't very big, only about 10 square meters. However, it was enough for Qin Chuan. Looking at some of Tai Peng's treasures stored in the storage ring, Qin Chuan directly said to Lion Duke, "Senior, this junior only needs this ring. I think most of the things in the ring are beneficial to Yao cultivators. Why don't you give them to Lion Duke?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lion Duke looked at him playfully and said, "You really know how to talk. If you want to give it to him, then give it to him. You don't have to tell me." Lion Duke carried Qin Chuan to the gate of the Lion tribe's camp and said to Qin Chuan, "You go in by yourself. I won't go in." Qin Chuan understood that Lion Duke wanted to retreat after accomplishing his mission. He didn't want to have too much contact with Lionheart and Lion Duke. So, he went to the Lion tribe's camp alone and went straight to the guard to report his name. Soon, Lion Duke's personal guard came to welcome Qin Chuan to the commander's tent. Qin Chuan saw Lion Duke outside the tent. Although they expected Qin Chuan to come alone, when they saw that Lion Duke didn't come, they couldn't help but show a look of disappointment. Qin Chuan didn't waste time and directly poured out the things in the storage ring on the ground. Then he said to Lion Duke, "This is what Big Cousin and I got from Tai Peng. I'll give it to you. Also, the Lion tribe crisis has been resolved for the time being. You can rest here and recuperate. There's no need to go out again." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lion Duke couldn't help but say, "The Lion King." Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke with a complicated expression and said he won't come back. Gu let out a long sigh and said to Qin Chuan, "Please help me tell the Lion King that he will always be my king. I will wait until the day he returns." Chapter 394. Now that the crisis of the Lion tribe had been resolved, It meant that the front line of the Eastern Mountain would not be attacked by the demon race for the time being. This was definitely good news for Qin Chuan, and he could breathe a sigh of relief. After walking out of the Lion Tribe's camp and returning to Lion Duke's side, Qin Chuan asked curiously, "Senior, where do you plan to go next?" Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan and asked, "Why? Do you plan to go with me?" "I want to, but unfortunately, I have to go to the Carefree Secret Realm in 2 months. It will be difficult for me to accompany Senior for too long." Qin Chuan showed a very regretful look. Whether Lion Duke wanted him to follow or not, he absolutely could not show any reluctance. 2 months, that's enough. Lion Duke looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "In these 2 months, you will follow me." Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke in astonishment, as if he was a little surprised that Lion Duke would make such a decision. If it was before, Lion Duke might be too lazy to explain anything to Qin Chuan, but now he was in a good mood, so he said to Qin Chuan, "You just followed me to the Iron Wolf Tribe's camp. They must have remembered your appearance. You also said in front of Tai Peng that you want to enter the Carefree Secret Realm. These people don't dare to trouble me on the surface, but when they enter the Carefree Secret Realm, they won't let you go." Hearing Lion Duke's words, Qin Chuan's face suddenly showed a constipated look. He didn't think much at that time and casually said that he was going to the Carefree Secret Realm. He didn't expect to get himself into such big trouble. Thinking about it carefully, it's really possible. Qin Chuan smiled bitterly and said to Lion Duke helplessly, "Senior, if they find out that I'm a human, will they misunderstand that Senior is colluding with the human race?" "So what if I'm a human?" Lion Duke laughed. "Do you think that all the people living in the celestial demon plane are demons?" Qin Chuan looked at the Lion Duke in surprise and asked, "Are there still humans in the demon realm?" Lion Duke nodded and said, "Just like the monster beasts that live in the mountains and rivers of your human race, there are also humans living in the monster realm. But compared to the wanton slaughter of your human race, we monster beasts live in peace with the humans of the monster realm. To put it bluntly, we demons are targeting the Star Dragon Federation, not the human race." Qin Chuan looked at the Lion Duke with a complicated expression and said, "I am not qualified to comment on the matters of the ancestors, but as long as I am alive, I will not stand by and do nothing in the face of the demon race's invasion. Sooner or later, I will end the war completely." "Ha, good, you're ambitious." Lion Duke laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "But before you realize your great wish, you should first think about how to get out of the Carefree Secret Plane alive." "Senior, what do you want to teach me?" Qin Chuan had already made up his mind. These 2 months must not be wasted. He must do his best to cultivate and improve his strength. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan and said, "Let's go." Lion Duke didn't say much, and Qin Chuan didn't ask any more questions. The two slowly walked into the distance, one in front and one behind. "Say that again." Tai Ming stared at Tai Peng with an extremely malicious gaze. His gaze was as sharp as a blade, as if he wanted to tear Tai Peng into pieces. Although Tai Peng knew in his heart that Tai Ming wasn't targeting him, he still felt his scalp tingle in the face of that terrifying gaze. His voice trembled as he said, "My king, the Lion Duke, is back. How can he still be alive?" Tai Ming roared and said with great reluctance, "Why is he still alive?" Tai Peng couldn't answer Tai Ming's question because he didn't know why the Lion Duke was still alive and even recovered his original Monster King realm. In the face of the Lion Duke's pressure, I have already given the order to no longer target the Lion Tribe. "My king, what about the Golden Leopard Tribe?" Tai Peng looked at Tai Ming with a slightly complicated expression. He made a decision without Tai Ming's permission. If it were any other time, Tai Ming would have scolded him. "You did the right thing." Tai Ming took a deep breath and said, "You saved my Iron Wolf Tribe." Hearing Tai Ming's words, Tai Peng's face couldn't help but reveal an as expected expression. He knew that Tai Ming would have made the same decision as him in the face of the Lion Duke's threat. He knew Tai Ming was more afraid of the Lion Duke than anyone else. To Tai Ming, the Lion Duke was his nemesis. "I will communicate with the Golden Leopard Tribe about this matter. Is there anything else?" Tai Ming looked at Tai Peng with tired eyes. Tai Peng thought for a moment and said to Tai Ming, "The Lion Duke didn't come alone. He also brought a junior with him. His junior took my storage ring and will enter the carefree secret realm soon." Tai Ming couldn't help but fall into deep thought after hearing Tai Peng's words. After a while, he said, "I understand. At the center of the demon realm was the heavenly demon plane, and at the center of the heavenly demon plane was the heavenly demon mountain. At the peak of the heavenly demon mountain stood a magnificent palace called the Heavenly Demon Temple, worshipped by thousands of demons. In the front hall of the Heavenly Demon Temple, a middle-aged man in a bright yellow robe sat on a golden bench with a dignified expression. He looked at the figures standing in front of the temple and asked, 'Is it true that the Lion Duke has appeared?' 'Your Majesty, it is true. Moreover, the Lion Duke has recovered his Monster King realm.'" The person in front of the temple respectfully answered the Demon King's question and presented scroll. It recorded in detail what happened before and after the Lion Duke appeared. The Demon King read 10 lines at a time and read the contents of scroll. He then frowned and said, "The Lion Duke brought a junior with him to enter the carefree secret realm?" "Yes," the person in front of the temple replied. "According to Tai Peng, this person looks like a human, not a demon. Whether he is a human or a demon, he is still the Lion Duke's junior. He has a good relationship with the Lion Duke." The Demon King looked at the person in front of the temple and said, "Give this scroll to Little Ro. Your Majesty wants Princess Rao to attack the Lion Duke's junior in the carefree secret realm? In the carefree secret realm, life and death are up to the heavens. Even if the Lion Duke knows that Little Ro killed his junior, he can't do anything." The Demon King looked at the sky outside the temple and said in a cold voice, "Anyone who has a close relationship with the Lion Duke should die. In addition, tell Ghost Prison to release Sher Fun and tell him the news about the Lion Duke. If he doesn't want to lose the Lion King's position, he knows what to do." Chapter 395 Eastern Mountain City, 10th Legion's encampment. Qin Ju was waiting for Qin Chuan's return, but he didn't expect to receive Qin Chuan's email. The crisis in Eastern Mountain has been resolved. The demons won't attack the front line of Eastern Mountain for the time being. We can take action to recover the lost land. I want to follow Senior in cultivation. Don't worry, 3,200. After reading Qin Chuan's email, Qin Ju was a little surprised. She was very curious about what Qin Chuan had done with that senior to actually say that the crisis in Eastern Mountain had been resolved. Qin Ju didn't doubt the authenticity of this, because the 3,200 at the end of the email was the secret signal that Qin Chuan and Qin Ju had agreed on when they split up in East Com Prefecture. Only the two of them knew about it. Did he leave just like that? Qin Ju looked at the email and felt lost. Dong, dong, dong. A series of knocks on the door woke Qin Ju up from his deep thoughts. Qin Ju looked in the direction of the door and said, "Come in." As soon as Qin Ju finished speaking, Adjutant Yuna pushed open the door and walked in. She said to Qin Ju, "General." Qin Ju looked at Yuna and said indifferently, "Send troops to the front line of Eastern Mountain and recover the lost land." Hearing this, Yuna looked at Qin Ju in surprise. "Send troops now? Isn't it too risky?" After the previous battle, the 10th Legion had less than 30,000 combat strength left. In Yuna's opinion, before the military's fleet arrived, it was best not to move. There's no need to ask. Just send troops. At the same time, inform the Eastern Mountain camp to let Feng Yong lead the army to the front line with us. His troops will be stationed there. Seeing that Qin Ju had already made his decision, Yuna didn't say anything else. She turned around and left, preparing to carry out the mission Qin Ju had assigned. As for Qin Ju, he looked at the email in front of him again and fell into deep thought. Qin Chuan was not too worried about the East Mountain front line. At this time, Iron Teeth Mountain definitely did not have the energy to care about the East Mountain front line. The process of recovering the lost land should be smoother than he had imagined. On the other hand, he felt that he had been fooled. Qin Chuan had been with the Lion Duke for 2 days now. During these 2 days, the Lion Duke didn't allow him to practice. Every day, the Lion Duke took him to different cities to eat, drink, and have fun. He wasn't even allowed to practice instead of sleep at night. This made Qin Xuan feel as if the Lion Duke wanted him dead. At the table, Qin Xuan looked at Lion Duke, who was gorging himself on a roasted suckling pig, and he couldn't help but reveal a helpless expression. "Senior, you've been eating for 2 days already. Haven't you had enough? I can't get enough of this suckling pig." Lion Duke's mouth was covered in oil, and he said to Qin Xuan, "How come I didn't know that pigs were so delicious? If I had known that roasted suckling pig was so delicious, I would have gone to the white pig division more often." Qin Xuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I've already reminded you so clearly, yet you still want to eat. I know what you're worried about, but you can't rush things like cultivation." Lion Duke glanced at Qin Xuan and said, "You have to learn to calm down. When your mind is completely calm, we'll talk about cultivation." Hearing the Lion Duke's words, Qin Xuan was slightly stunned. After a moment of silence, he said to the Lion Duke, "I understand." Over the next 3 days, Qin Xuan didn't rush Lion Duke, and he wasn't in a rush. He ate whatever Lion Duke wanted to eat. At first, he was just watching, but then he joined in to eat, and now his mouth was covered in oil. After 3 days, Qin Xuan felt that he had gained a lot of weight. Lion Duke, on the other hand, was still the same. After 5 days of eating, drinking, and having fun, Lion Duke was finally ready to train Qin Xuan on the morning of the 6th day. But the place of the training was a little strange. It was in a high-end buffet restaurant. Qin Xuan was sitting on a chair, and he looked at Lion Duke strangely. He asked, "Senior, are you going to train me here?" "Yes." Lion Duke nodded, and then he threw something that looked like a rag to Qin Xuan. He said, "This is for you." Qin Xuan glanced at the greasy cloth, and the corners of his mouth twitched violently. He reached out 2 fingers and pinched a corner of the cloth in disdain. He shook it open and laid it out on the table. "Eat and drink." Looking at the name of the cultivation method written on the rag, Qin Xuan hesitantly looked at Lion Duke and asked, "Is this a cultivation method?" To be precise, this should be a cultivation method that assists in cultivation. Lion Duke looked at Qin Xuan and smiled. He then asked, "What do you think a cultivator relies on to cultivate?" Qin Xuan thought for a moment, then said, "It's spiritual energy." A cultivator's cultivation was a process of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, then converting it into spiritual power. For a cultivator, cultivation relied on spiritual energy. Your answer isn't wrong, but it's not entirely correct. Lion Duke coughed lightly and said to Qin Xuan, "The cultivation you mentioned refers to internal cultivation. What do you want to say about external cultivation?" Qin Xuan heard this and hesitated. He said, "Senior, by external cultivation, you mean the physical body?" "That's right." Lion Duke nodded and said, "Back then, I used the blood essence secret medicine to refine your body. Didn't I cultivate your physical body? Only when your physical body is strong enough can you become stronger internally. Let me give you an example. How much water a bucket can hold depends on the capacity of the bucket. How much power a human body can bear depends on the strength of the human body. If your body is only as strong as a bucket, you can only splash out a bucket of water. However, if someone else's body is as strong as a water tank, the water they splash out is enough to destroy your bucket. That's right, Zhang Tai said. Our monster race doesn't have as advanced technology as your human race, and we don't have powerful battleships and cannons. But we can still beat your human race into a retreat. We lose more than we win, and we rely on the strength of our physical bodies. Our monster race's physical body is strong enough, so we can hold more monster chi. When we fight, the power we can erupt is stronger. Naturally, your human race is no match for us." Hearing Lion Duke's words, Qin Xuan couldn't help but fall into deep thought. After a while, he looked up at Lion Duke and said, "If the strength of the human race and the monster race is a pool, then the physical body is equivalent to the water and drainage system of the pool. Whoever has a stronger system can inject more water and drain more water in a short time. The more water there is, the more power there is." Lion Duke thought for a moment and said, "It seems to be the case. It's more or less the same." I understand. Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke excitedly and said, "This gluttony art is the same as the blood essence secret medicine. It's used to cultivate the physical body." That's right. Lion Duke nodded and said, "The more you eat, the more you digest, and the stronger your physical body will become. So now, do you know why I can eat so much?" Chapter 396. After understanding Lion Duke's intentions, Qin Chuan looked at the eat and drink cultivation method on the table. He carefully memorized the chant in his heart. The chant wasn't long, and Qin Chuan memorized it in just a moment. Seeing Qin Chuan memorizing the skill, Lion Duke said to Qin Chuan, "When you eat, you must recite the skill. You must not stop. When you feel that you're full, you can stop and go back to cultivate. When you're cultivating, you just need to cultivate normally. The energy you've stored with eat and drink as much will naturally be digested. Remember, you can't stop cultivating before the energy you've stored is completely digested." I understand. Qin Chuan looked at the food on the table and said to Lion Duke, "Senpai, can we start eating now? There's one more important thing. When you eat, you must eat something nutritious. Meat is the best, and demon beast meat is even better." Lion Duke patted his stomach and said to Qin Chuan, "Okay, you can go eat now. Give me a portion too." With Lion Duke's permission, Qin Chuan immediately got up and walked to the nearby table. At this time, there were still very few guests in the restaurant, and there was plenty of food. Qin Chuan didn't refuse any of them, and he took all the meat he saw back. "Mister, are you sure you want to eat so much?" When the restaurant's waiter saw Qin Chuan carrying so much food, he had a very strange look on his face. They were a very famous high-end buffet restaurant, and most of the guests who came here were here for parties. They were very particular about their food and drink. It was the first time he met a customer like Qin Chuan who wanted everything. Facing the waiter's question, Qin Chuan smiled and said to the waiter, "Please inform your kitchen to make more barbecued meat. This is not enough." The waiter was a little speechless. 10 people might not be able to finish all this food. "Are you sure it's not enough?" Soon, the waiter's doubt turned into shock. There was not enough meat in the restaurant for Qin Chuan and Lion Duke. In less than 5 minutes, Qin Chuan and Lion Lord had finished all the meat they brought back. The empty plates were stacked 2 meters high, and this was just the beginning. Qin Chuan went out for a stroll. When he came back, he had a whole roasted lamb in his left hand and a roasted suckling pig in his right. Behind him was a dining cart filled with all kinds of roasted meat, stewed meat, and broth. Qin Chuan looked at the stunned waiter and asked in surprise, "Why are you still here? Hurry back and inform the kitchen to cook. There's really not enough to eat." "Oh," the waiter agreed in a daze. He turned around and ran towards the general manager's office. If they let these two eat, they would suffer a huge loss. "This broth is not bad. It's actually made from the bones of demon beasts. It's a rare delicacy." Lion Duke had good eyesight. He glanced at the big pot of broth and said to Qin Chuan, "Drink it all. It's more nutritious than ordinary meat." "No problem." Qin Chuan sat down on the chair and continued to eat. During the process of eating, Qin Chuan could clearly feel that his stomach seemed to have become a bottomless pit. No matter how much he ate, he didn't feel full. Instead, his whole body felt warm and comfortable. At this time, the general manager, who was informed by the waiter, had also secretly observed Qin Chuan and Lion Duke. He looked at Qin Chuan and Lion Duke deeply, then said to the waiter, "Inform the kitchen to cook." The waiter looked at the general manager in surprise. He didn't understand why the general manager would make such a decision. They are cultivators, not ordinary people. Ordinary people don't have such an appetite, and they can't bear the energy contained in the broth. The general manager looked at the waiter and said, "In the future, keep your eyes open. Try to meet the requirements of cultivators as much as possible." "Yes, I know." The waiter immediately changed his attitude. With the unlimited supply of food in the restaurant, Qin Chuan ate for 2 hours before he wiped his mouth with satisfaction. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan, who stopped, and looked at the plates around him. He smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "I didn't expect you to eat so much on your first time." Not bad. I can't eat anymore. I can't eat at all. Qin Chuan burped and said to Lion Duke, I want to go back. Then go back. Cultivate well, and tell me how you feel. Lion Duke continued to eat. Qin Chuan returned to the hotel and began to cultivate in the small cultivation room. When he was cultivating the thunder-devouring art today, Qin Chuan obviously felt a little different from before. He felt a little sluggish and strenuous. Qin Chuan had already expected this situation. He ate so much food and accumulated a lot of energy in his body. At this time, he needed to digest it, so it was normal for him to feel strenuous. Just like this, after an entire night of cultivation, Qin Chuan once again found that smooth feeling. The energy contained in the meat he ate yesterday was finally completely digested by him. When he stopped cultivating and opened his eyes, Qin Chuan smelled a foul odor coming from his body. He looked at the dirt on his body with disgust and walked to the bathroom not far away. He scrubbed himself clean and walked out. Lion Duke stood outside the bathroom and looked at Qin Chuan, who looked clean and fresh. He smiled and asked, How do you feel? Qin Chuan clenched his fists and felt the difference in strength between before and after he cultivated. He then said to Lion Duke, Mister, I feel like my body has become stronger, but it's very subtle. It's not obvious. It's very subtle. Most of the meat you ate yesterday was ordinary meat. The energy contained in it is very little. It's already very good that you can detect such a subtle increase. You have to know, this is only the first time. Wait until you've done it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. When you look back, you'll know how scary it is. Mister, you're right. Qin Chuan agreed with Lion Baron's words. No one could become a fatty in one bite. Everything had to be done step by step, and many little things would make a mickle. Let's not eat these nutritious things today. We'll go hunting in the mountains. From now on, you'll have to eat monster meat every day. Eat until you're full. Lion Duke smiled and said, Don't eat until you puke. When Qin Chuan heard this, he grinned and said, Even if I vomit, I still have to look at it. This is all energy, power. Chapter 397. Time passed like flowing water. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. Star Dragon City, Qin family. Qin Yiming sat upright on a chair and looked at the butler standing in front of him with a gloomy expression. He asked in a deep voice, 2 months have passed, and there's still no news of Qin Chuan. Master, Qin Chuan disappeared after leaving Easter Mountain 2 months ago. I've already sent people to look for him, but they haven't been able to find any traces of him. The butler replied respectfully, According to the clues provided by the general, Qin Chuan should have been cultivating wholeheartedly for the past 2 months. There's still 3 days before the Carefree Secret Realm opens. If we can't find Qin Chuan within 3 days, do you know what this means for my Qin family? Qin Yiming snorted coldly. Send everyone to look for him. Even if Qin Chuan is deep in the mountains and forests, you must find him. Yes, I understand. Just as the butler was about to leave, someone suddenly walked in and said to Qin Yiming, Master, the general is back. As soon as this person finished speaking, Qin Ju, who was wearing a dark green military uniform, walked into the living room and stood in front of Qin Yiming. Haha, third sister, you're finally back. Seeing Qin Ju return, Qin Yiming's face immediately revealed a happy smile. Qin Ju looked at Qin Yiming calmly and said indifferently, I came back because the Carefree Secret Realm is about to open. I know. Qin Yiming chuckled and said, You're here to send Hao Xuan off, right? Hearing Qin Yiming mention Qin Hao Xuan, Qin Ju's face couldn't help but reveal a complicated expression. She nodded lightly and said, I've been at the Eastern Mountain front line during this period of time, so I don't know much about the situation at home. How's Hao Xuan now? Hao Xuan is doing very well now. Qin Yiming sighed. Half a month ago, Hao Xuan recovered and began rehabilitation training. The results are quite good. It's good that he recovered. Qin Ju heaved a sigh of relief in his heart and asked with concern, Where's Qin Chuan? Where is he? Speaking of Qin Chuan, Qin Yiming shook his head helplessly. I don't know. It's been 2 months, and I haven't been able to find him. You should be the last person who contacted him." Hearing Qin Yiming say that he still hadn't found Qin Chuan after 2 months, Qin Zhu couldn't help but worry about Qin Chuan's safety. If that person wanted to harm Qin Chuan, then Qin Chuan definitely wouldn't be able to survive. There's still 3 days left. Hopefully, he can make it back before the carefree mystery realm opens. Qin Yiming sighed. To be honest, he wasn't worried about Qin Chuan's life or death. He didn't even want to see Qin Chuan enter the unfettered secret realm. However, this was Qin Chongxiao's order. It was related to the fight for the key to the unfettered secret realm. He had to do it. I'm going back to my room to rest. Qin Zhu didn't have the interest to continue chatting with Qin Yiming. He turned around and left. Qin Yiming watched Qin Zhu's figure disappear into the distance and said softly to Qin Hu, who was standing beside him, "Third Sisters' battle at the Eastern Mountain front line shocked the Federation, recovered the lost land, and won the hearts of the people. Now that the 10th Legion has been transformed into a half-battleship army, it will definitely become a complete battleship army within the next 3 years. At that time, Third Sister's position in the military will skyrocket." Hearing Qin Yiming's words, Qin Hu whispered, "Master, what are you worried about?" "I'm worried that Third Sister will do something irrational because of Qin Chuan." Qin Yiming looked deeply at the distant sky and said in a deep voice, "Back then, I had already lost a sister. Now, I don't want to lose another sister. Therefore, some people still have to be dealt with. The Carefree Mystery Realm is a very good place to bury their bones." The opening of the Carefree Mystery Realm was a secret to ordinary people. However, to the aristocratic families, sects, and some commoner geniuses, it was a grand event that was even more important than the 6 great academies ranking competition. October 5th, North Mountain Ding Bay. North Mountain Ding Bay wasn't very high. It was only about 400 meters above sea level and could only be considered a small mountain. On normal days, North Mountain Ding Bay was rarely seen. However, today the entire North Mountain Ding Bay was bustling with noise and excitement. On a platform halfway up the mountain, Chun Chongxing, who was dressed in black, looked into the distance and said to his companion beside him, "It seems that all the geniuses with some fame in the Federation have come today. I've heard of many of them." Lu Zi, who was wearing a baseball cap, an iconic purple t-shirt, and denim pants, looked around curiously and asked, "Are you sure that the Carefree Mystery Realm is opening today? Why isn't Qin Chuan here yet?" During the 6 Great Academies ranking competition, Qin Chuan had agreed with the Qin family that he would represent the Qin family in entering the Carefree Mystery Realm. Now, they had already stayed on North Mountain Ding Bay for 2 days, but there was still no sign of Qin Chuan. Lu Zi couldn't help but worry about Qin Chuan's situation. Boss should be coming with the people from the Qin clan. Chen Chongxing wasn't worried about Qin Chuan. In his opinion, unless Qin Chuan was courting death, no one could do anything to Qin Chuan. The Qin family is here. Long Xiao suddenly turned to look at the distant sky. A flying ship was slowly flying towards North Mountain Ding Bay. There was a large flag with the word Qin on it, indicating the origin of the flying ship. The flying ship slowly stopped in the sky above North Mountain Ding Bay. The door of the flying ship opened and dozens of figures slowly walked out. Among them was the well-known Qin family head, Qin Yiming. There was also the 10th Army Commander, Qin Zhu, who was currently in the limelight, and the calm Qilin son of the Qin family, Qin Haoshuan. Long Xiao frowned as he looked at the Qin family members who slowly landed on the peak of North Mountain Ding Bay. Qin Chuan isn't here. This isn't right. Chen Chongxing scratched his head. Everyone who should be here is here. Why isn't Boss here yet? Rumble. Right at that moment, there was a sudden clap of thunder in the sky. A thick pillar of lightning struck North's stabilizing mountain. Just as everyone was horrified, a figure fell from the sky and smashed into the deep pit created by the lightning pillar. "Damn! Throwing me down from such a high place? Are you trying to kill me?" In the billowing dust, a cursing voice was heard, attracting everyone's attention. Some people had subtle expressions on their faces when they heard this familiar voice. Cough, cough. A strong young man wearing coarse clothes made of animal skin walked out of the smoke and dust. He looked around at the many figures on the mountain and shouted, "Where are the people of the Chin family? I'm here to keep the appointment." On the mountain peak, the Chin family members looked at the young man who descended from the sky with different expressions. Haoshuan, he's here. Qin Yiming pursed his lips and asked Qin Haoshuan, who was standing beside him, "Do you hate him? He can't kill me. He'll only make me stronger." Qin Haoshuan looked into the distance calmly. His expression was cold and indifferent. Chapter 398. At this time, many of the young geniuses present had already recognized the identity of the young man in animal skin. He was the champion of the 6th Great Academy's ranking competition, the MVP contestant Qin Chuan. All the fortuitous encounters and treasures in the carefree secret realm had to be fought for. To everyone, Qin Chuan was definitely an opponent worthy of attention. No one would underestimate Qin Chuan. Boss! Just as everyone was discussing about Qin Chuan's arrival, a tall and thin figure rushed over and hugged Qin Chuan enthusiastically. Chen Changxing hugged Qin Chuan tightly and said excitedly, "Boss, I really missed you. Haha, go away." Qin Chuan pushed Chen Changxing away without any trace of politeness, then opened his arms to Lu Zi, who was walking towards him. "Long time no see." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan with a slightly complicated expression. After a while, she hugged Qin Chuan and said in a low voice, "I didn't want to hug you, but there are too many people here. I don't want to make it too awkward for you." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but smile bitterly. He knew in his heart that Lu Zi was still brooding over what happened on the flying ship. "Qin Chuan, welcome back." Baiyu looked at Qin Chuan with a gentle gaze and said softly, "You've become stronger. In these 3 months, Baiyu hadn't slacked off and had been diligently cultivating every day. Today, when she saw Qin Chuan, she was a little surprised because she felt that Qin Chuan's growth was even greater than hers. "I've indeed been getting stronger." Qin Chuan chuckled and wasn't modest. Ever since he started cultivating his body with Lion Duke, his strength had increased day by day. Although his realm was still at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment, his strength was much stronger than 2 months ago. Long Xiao sized up Qin Chuan curiously and asked, "I wonder if you've slacked off in the Tao of Talisman Arrays?" Qin Chuan scratched his head and said, "I haven't slacked off, but there hasn't been much progress." During this period of time, he didn't have much time to study the Tao of Talisman Arrays. At most, he would review the Talisman Arrays that he had mastered in the past. Therefore, he basically didn't make any progress. "Then you have to be careful. Don't let me surpass you." Long Xiao looked at Qin Chuan with a burning gaze and said with an extremely confident tone, "I've made a new breakthrough in the Tao of Talisman Arrays. I'll definitely surprise you." "Then congratulations." Qin Chuan chuckled and said, "Let's talk later. I'll go over there to report first." With that, Qin Chuan walked towards the peak of the mountain where the Qin clan was located. In the crowd, Chen Changxing looked resentfully at Qin Chuan's back as he left. He said to the crowd, "Did you see that just now? Boss is so heartless. He pushed me away just like that. Enough." Long Xiao rolled her eyes at Chen Changxing and said, "You're a man. Don't be so calculative." Chen Changxing looked at Long Xiao with an aggrieved expression. Miss Long was not cute at all. At the peak of the mountain, Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan, who was slowly walking over. Her eyes couldn't help but flash with a hint of surprise. She didn't know what Qin Chuan had experienced in the past 2 months, but she could clearly feel that Qin Chuan was much stronger than when they parted ways. This strength didn't just refer to cultivation realm or strength, but all aspects. Qin Ju wasn't the only one who noticed the changes in Qin Chuan's body. Qin Yiming also noticed it. He looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said to Qin Ju beside him, "Compared to 3 months ago, he's even stronger. I think that there shouldn't be many people below the gold core stage who could be his match." To Qin Yiming, the stronger Qin Chuan was the more likely it was for their Qin clan to obtain the key to the carefree secret realm. This should have been a good thing, but he wasn't happy in his heart. In fact, he felt very uncomfortable because he didn't want his son to be inferior to others, especially when this person was Qin Chuan. Compared to Qin Yiming, Qin Haoshuan's performance was exceptionally calm. The enemy who had caused him to lose his dragon soul was clearly in front of him, but he was as calm as if nothing had happened. It could be said that it was extremely strange. When they were walking towards the peak of the mountain, Qin Chuan had noticed Qin Haoshuan and had been secretly observing him. Qin Haoshuan's calmness was completely out of Qin Chuan's expectations, and it also made Qin Chuan a little wary in his heart. He didn't believe that Qin Haoshuan would be a magnanimous person, especially when facing him. Patriarch Qin, I've come to keep the appointment. Qin Chuan slowly walked in front of Qin Yiming and asked curiously, Great Cultivator Qin didn't come? Qin Yiming looked at Qin Chuan with a deep gaze and replied, Father didn't come. It's just a small matter that isn't worth Father's personal visit. That makes sense. Qin Chuan nodded, then greeted Qin Ju with a smile. General Qin, it's been 2 months since we last met. I really miss you. Facing Qin Chuan's warm greeting, Qin Ju smiled and reminded Qin Chuan, You have to protect yourself in the carefree secret realm. Be careful. I understand. Qin Chuan chuckled, then turned his gaze to Qin Haoshuan and said with a smile, It's said that the greatest enemy in the carefree secret realm is the demon race. Maybe I'll have to join hands with Brother Haoshuan to fight against the demon race. Don't you think so? When everyone heard Qin Chuan's words, they all revealed looks of surprise. No one had expected that Qin Chuan would actually take the initiative to greet Qin Haoshuan. Moreover, he looked especially friendly. Qin Haoshuan calmly looked at the smiling Qin Chuan and said indifferently, The carefree secret realm is teleported to different locations. I hope we will have a chance to cooperate. I'm looking forward to it. Qin Chuan gave Qin Haoshuan a deep look, then retracted his gaze and said to Qin Yiming, Patriarch Qin, if there's nothing else you need me to do, I'll go look for my friends. I'll do my best to do what you've asked me to do. I hope that after the matter of the carefree secret realm, all the grudges between us can be written off. Yes, everything will be written off. Qin Yiming gave Qin Chuan a deep look, but didn't say anything else. Qin Chuan smiled and nodded at Qin Ju. Then, he turned around and walked towards the people from the Black Moon Combat Academy. Compared to dealing with the people from the Qin clan, he preferred to stay with his friends from the Black Moon Combat Academy. Looking at Qin Chuan's departing figure, Qin Yiming gave Qin Ju a subtle look and said, Third sister, you seem to have a good relationship with him. Qin Yiming knew that Qin Chuan had once appeared at the Eastern Mountain front line. He also knew that Qin Chuan and Qin Ju had interacted before. However, from the performance of Qin Chuan and Qin Ju today, the relationship between the two was obviously not as simple as he thought. Indeed, Qin Ju looked at Qin Yiming calmly. After all, he's my sister's son. Chapter 399. As Qin Chuan was on his way down the mountain to find the Black Moon Combat Academy members, a tall figure blocked his path. It was a beautiful goddess with a good figure. She exuded the powerful aura of a Foundation establishment late-stage cultivator and stood out among the many youths present. You're Qin Chuan? The girl sized up Qin Chuan and seemed to be very interested in Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan smiled and said to the girl, I'm Qin Chuan. And you are? I'm Zhang Yang. You can call me Sister Yang. My team is currently lacking a talisman array master, and I think you're very suitable. How about it? Are you interested in forming an alliance with us in the carefree secret realm? Zhang Yang looked at Qin Chuan arrogantly and said, Although you're the MVP of the 6th Great Academy's ranking tournament, my companions aren't bad either. Hearing Zhang Yang's words, Qin Chuan could not help but laugh. This was the first time he had met someone as proud and confident as Zhang Yang. Thank you for your praise. Qin Chuan chuckled and pointed at the Black Moon Combat Academy members not far away, and said, I also have my own team. Zhang Yang looked back at Qin Chuan's team and sneered, I know about your team. I've also watched the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament. Other than that ice-cold guy who has some ability, the others are just bystanders. I can let you bring that ice-cold guy into our team. What do you think? Forget it. Qin Chuan waved his hand. I'm afraid I'll drag you down. Facing Qin Chuan's rejection, Zhang Yang's face suddenly darkened, and he said coldly, "You don't know how to appreciate favors. If it wasn't for my father repeatedly telling me to be on good terms with you, do you think I would talk so much nonsense to you?" Qin Chuan slightly raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "May I ask who your father is?" "You don't need to know." Zhang Yang seemed to be too lazy to talk nonsense with Qin Chuan. He turned around and left. Qin Chuan was speechless as he looked at the back of Zhang Yang. He felt that this pair of sisters was too much a character. As the saying goes, even if business is not done, friendship is still there. You are too realistic to turn hostile immediately when you are rejected. You really did not say anything unnecessary. "Boss, what were you talking about with that woman?" It was not known when Chen Chongqing had moved to Qin Chuan's side. He looked at the arrogant Zhang Yang with curiosity, as if he was very familiar with him. Qin Chuan pointed at Zhang Yang and asked Chen Chongqing, "Do you know each other?" "I do." Zhang Yang nodded and said, "Her name is Zhang Yang. We used to be in the same high school, 2 grades higher than me. In college, this guy's grades were average. After entering Southwest University, China, we haven't seen each other since. The Zhang family has some status in Southwest. They can be considered a local bully." Qin Chuan nodded and said, "She wanted to rope me in to team up with her, but I refused." "It's good that you refused." Chen Chongqing laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "This Zhang Yang is already 22 years old this year. He is about to graduate from college, but he is only in the late stage of foundation establishment. It's ridiculous that he thinks he is invincible." Although Zhang Yang was in the late stage of foundation establishment, Chen Chongqing really did not put Zhang Yang in his eyes. Even if he was only in the early stage of foundation establishment, it was very easy for him to defeat Zhang Yang. Qin Chuan would not team up with a cannon fodder like Zhang Yang unless his brain was fried. "Boss, before you came, we discussed it. Everyone will gather at Zijin Palace as soon as we enter the carefree secret realm, and then we will act together." Chen Chongqing looked at Qin Chuan and asked, "What do you think about this plan?" Qin Chuan pondered for a moment, shook his head, and said, "I may not be able to go to Zijin Palace as soon as possible. I will go to Xiao Yao Palace, Zijin Palace, and Colorful Glaze Mansion, which are the closest to me. This is something I have agreed on with the Qin family. It is not up to me to decide." Qin Chuan also wanted everyone to act together, but he entered the carefree secret realm not only to seek opportunities for himself, but also to help the Qin family find the key to the carefree secret realm. He had to go through these 3 places first before he could move freely. If he was randomly teleported to somewhere near Zijin Palace, he would naturally head to Zijin Palace as soon as possible. However, if he was teleported to somewhere near Xiao Yao Palace or the 7-colored Glaze Mansion, then he couldn't head to Zijin Palace first because it would waste a lot of time and energy. After all, other than them, there were also demon clans in Xiao Yao secret realm. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Chen Chongqing thought for a moment and said, "Boss, what you said makes some sense. In that case, let's wait and see. That's the only way." Qin Chuan looked back at the Qin family on the mountain peak. After this trip to the carefree secret realm, he hoped that he could completely cut off his relationship with the Qin family. Rumble. Thunder suddenly sounded in the clear sky, followed by a strong wind. The blue sky and white clouds almost instantly turned into dark clouds, as if a heavy rain would fall at any time. Those who came to North Mountain for the first time were surprised by the strange weather change. But the older generation knew that this was a sign before the opening of the carefree secret realm. With the appearance of the signs of the carefree secret realm, many figures appeared one after another on North Mountain. Roughly counting, there were more than 1,000 people. Most of these people were the geniuses of the younger generation who were going to enter the carefree secret realm. Only a few were the elders who came to see them off. The carefree secret realm is about to open again. Yi Cheng looked at the dark clouds in the sky with a complicated gaze and said to Yi Ching Ning beside him, "Remember what Grandpa told you. You must do it." Yi Ching Ning took a deep look at Yi Cheng and said in a low voice, "I know. Whether our Yi family will rise or fall in the next 100 years will depend on this." Yi Cheng patted Yi Ching Ning's shoulder lightly and sighed. "You must not let Grandpa down." Rumble. After a violent roar of thunder, the dark clouds in the sky suddenly dispersed, and a huge bronze door appeared in the sky. Under the effect of a mysterious power, the bronze door slowly opened, revealing a golden path that led directly to the peak of North Mountain. Seeing this golden path, everyone's breathing couldn't help but quicken. This was the path to the carefree secret realm. As long as one had the entry pass to the carefree secret realm, they could enter. If a cultivator above the foundation establishment stage walked up, they would be directly blasted into ashes by the mysterious power of the open bronze door. Whoosh! The moment the golden path landed, there were already people who couldn't wait to fly up the golden path, heading straight for the bronze door in the sky. After someone took the lead, more and more people rushed up the golden path, and no one was willing to be left behind. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.